Welcome to the Long Take Review, where college professors talk film, providing insight, not assigning homework. I'm your host, Jen Sipchak-Bankard. I'm here with a couple of uncanny valley animals. First, my God, what is he? He's unstoppable. It's Greg Cass. How's it going, Greg?
Do not go back to the house. They found you. I don't know who you are, but they're gonna kill you. Hi, Jen. I'm very excited to be back here tonight and so excited to talk about this movie.
Yeah, me too. Especially after our last 3-hour-long episode. We've made it. We made it here. We did it. And he's got a great weather shimmy. It's PT McNiff. How's it going, PT?
You won't believe me if I told you, so I'm going to show you. Hi, Jen. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm glad. Where's your backpack? If you have that line, you at least needed to have a backpack.
My little rucksack?
Around. Yeah.
It's under the table.
All right.
I'll bring it out later.
Maybe you can make a quick run to REI in between.
Get all my USB sticks out.
Yeah. Was that what those were? Anyway, we'll get into it. Dear listeners, we're so excited. I've already started the episode before even introducing us. Those were all references to the film we are here to review today. Disclosure Day. Disclosure Day, as is no governmental secret, is the latest film from Steven Spielberg, wherein Josh O'Connor is a whistleblower racing against the efforts of Colin Firth and the evil Wardex Corporation to disclose definitive proof of, well, to find that out, you'll have to wait until spoilers. Along the way, he encounters Emily Blunt, who is similarly working through a very weird day. And that, folks, is an understatement. If you are listening to us for the first time, we'll have a spoiler-free section designed for those who have not yet seen the film. And then with a very clear alert, we will shift into spoiler mode for the rest of the show. So you're probably good with this movie. Probably 30 minutes in, we'll probably go into spoiler mode if I have to guess. PT, if listeners think they want to pick up our feed to go national after listening to this episode, what can I do?
Are we people? Are we human? Find out by following the Long Take Review wherever you get your podcasts. We host the feed on Jen Substack at thelongtake.substack.com, but you can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, YouTube, and many more. Wherever you're listening right now, you can find us there. We're also on social media. You can follow us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at The Long Take Review. We are also on Letterboxd. You can follow the account at LTRpod, or you can search for the hashtag LTRpod to see what each of us individually has been watching. Jen?
Thanks, PT. So before we get into our main review, we haven't done this in a little while, but we want to take a minute to do what I'm going to call, because I just want to play the sound clip, a movie news update, but in the form of a hype draft update.
Just in off the wire, it's your Hollywood news.
I'm kind of sad we don't use that regularly
It's been too long.
anymore.
Well, the episodes were very long when we also did a half hour
Yeah.
about movie news.
Yes, that's true. So, I didn't.
Jen just got to the promise in the outline where I said I will do a live improvised new theme song for Hype Draft Update if we need it. So, listeners, she deprived you of that genius.
No, we can still do it. You should still do it. I'll cut all of it out. I regret everything.
Continue
Wait, was
on.
it planned or were you going to make it up right now?
I had some ideas. I've been listening to Sports Arena
Aw.
Voices
You've been
all day.
workshopping?
It's okay. You know,
But are
I
they
tried
like
it
for
out
the
on my
World Cup?
kids? They're
Are
crying.
they for the World Cup?
They're
And so we get Greg's movie news, but in Spanish?
Oh, hi!
Hi.
Bye.
Yeah, because that's what this kind of that's this kind of podcast.
I was gonna try a hype draft update.
Okay.
I knew if we
See-
kept talking about it, we'd get it.
Yeah. PT knows you too well. I love it. So as we approach the midpoint of the year, our hype draft is very much anyone's to win. However, there's been a lot of movie news, and since we just said we don't do regular movie news update segments anymore, there are some things maybe have shifted since we originally drafted all the movies that we did in what month was that? It had to be
Late March or early April.
okay.
April,
So,
because
a while
Project
ago.
Hail Mary had already come out.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So since April, things have happened. Mostly the Cannes Film Festival. At least on my end, in terms of like things that might shift us around. But I don't want to spoil anything. Greg, this was your great idea. Do you want to add anything before we get into it?
Spoken like somebody who has to admit her slate has been sabotaged by the forces of the movie industry. So I'll go first with I'm doing pretty great. So listeners may not recall that I have a total of 5 movies, as we all do. One is Disclosure Day, which we're talking about tonight, and we'll get into the reception and our own personal feelings. I would say solid, but not like crazy opening weekend. I think it overperformed estimations, and traditionally Spielberg has some good legs on him, on his movies. Now it sounds like I'm sexualizing Steven Spielberg. So feels like a solid pick. We'll see what the critics on air tonight thought about it. But the 2 big pieces of news for my slate. Number 2 on my list is The Adventures of Cliff Booth, which is getting an IMAX release. So Netflix feels confident. Netflix thinks they have something here and are excited to get it out there. Hey, Jen, why don't I throw it over to you? Does that particular piece of news impact your hype draft slate at all?
Yes, because the reason The Adventures of Cliff Booth is getting an IMAX release is because Narnia, the Magician's Nephew, which had a special deal with Netflix and IMAX, is now getting bumped to next year.
Like, in a way that's positive for the movie because it has a longer theatrical release window. It was part of the move, but not helpful for your 2026 hype draft that the movie's coming out in 2027. But
yeah, I was going to say, the disdain is entirely selfish. It's like, just like, I'm like, oh, that's great. Great for theatrical, great for Greta Gerwig, great for the movie, not great for my hype draft because now I'm down a movie. But you know what? I'm still gonna say that that 1 or 2 things, at least on the rest of my slate, could still carry me through, and so I make it out kind of okay at the end. Is what I would say.
Well, and while we traditionally date these by years and will mock and shame you for your movie getting bumped to 2027, it will be out solidly before we return to hype drafting. So it would not be eligible for the next hype draft. So, I think it's still part of the conversation, even if I will lose these charitable thoughts next time we talk about our rosters. I'll jump back to mine and just note I have Digger. Jury's still out. Nobody's seen Digger. There is early news that people are thinking the performance of Tom Cruise will lead to a Best Actor race. We'll see. I'm going to skip to the bottom and say my small indie movie of The Only Living Pickpocket in New York. Haven't heard a thing about it since I drafted it, so we'll just say holding on that stock. But the big news in the plus column for me is, of course, I picked the film Fjord, starring Renata Reinsve and Sebastian Stan, a reunion of A Different Man. I always get that one and the monkey one confused. A Different Man.
Better Man is the monkey one. A Different Man is the one you're talking about. Yes.
Okay. Monkeys are better than men. I'll remember it from now on. And hey, not doing too shabby because it won the Palme d'Or and has a big distribution deal, which I think it had before it won the Palme d'Or. So, I think this guarantees I have a player in the race of Best Picture. We'll see if it's, right up there with Parasite and Anatomy of a Fall, or if it's more of a sentimental value. Hey, we're really glad you're in the mix, but we're never actually considering you. So, feeling pretty confident, feeling pretty good. PT, you have no news.
Yeah, there's nothing to talk about. My movies all look great, and nothing really has changed since then. 4 of them are coming out between November 6th and December 25th. So check back later.
You want to quickly list those? I just realized I also referred to my list, assuming the audience would know.
Sure. Are they not all looking at the Google Doc for the episode? Poor form. But yes, I have Dune Part 3 coming out in December. Trailer for that's been playing behind all the Mandalorian and Grogu showings. It played behind Disclosure Day. Movie looks great. Very excited. Robert Pattinson looking weird. It's gonna be super fun. Anya Taylor-Joy interview.
You can say that about mine too.
I know. And you're welcome to.
I'm going to interject and say I have not seen the Dune 3 trailer basically at all
I haven't either.
Since Project Hail Mary. So that's surprising news to me from your end, though I am seeing the trailer for Jen's movie on literally everything.
I wonder if is it because I'm thinking of seeing seeing movies at the Chinese theater and at the Vista, that those more independent theaters are playing that, and like that's sort of their choice.
Right.
But it was interesting because it was on the 70mm print of Disclosure Day. Like they had the curated, they showed 3 Spielberg movie trailers. You might be able to guess which 3. And then it was, okay, our feature presentation. And then there were 2 more trailers, one for Jen's first round pick, one for mine. And then when they started the movie. So it's out there. I don't know. It's out there. I also picked Godzilla -0, which I'm excited about. Haven't heard anything about it besides, I think the teaser had just come out when we did our hype draft, or maybe it was right after. Looks great. Wild Horse 9, the new Martin McDonagh movie, still looks fun. The trailer that I've seen is the same one from months ago. I don't think that's a problem, but it looks good. No word.
I was shocked it was a fall release because I've seen the trailer in such heavy rotation. I was thinking it was like a late May, early June release. So, but I agree with you. I see the trailer. I'm not mad about it. Like I chuckle a couple times every time when John Malkovich says, "Who was that? Your mom?" Cracks me up every time. And also, you've never killed somebody in Czechoslovakia. You just know I can't spell it. Like it's gonna be great. So I mean, I hate you and I hate your roster, but it's gonna be great.
Yeah. That's fine. No one wants to see Fjord. It looks really sad and boring. Just kidding. I really want to see it. The fun thing will be figuring out what I'm doing on November 6th, 2026, when both Godzilla -0 and Wild Horse 9 come out. Robert Eggers. David Eggers is the author. Robert Eggers, Werewolf, comes out Christmas Day. Can't wait to try to sell my family on going to see that on Christmas Day. But that should be fun. Good werewolf movie. And then my only late fall release coming out late August, always a time of high quality for movie releases, is Coyote versus Acme, the long delayed Looney Tunes live action movie, which trailer looked good. I'm excited about it. I vaguely recall I had a couple more serious picks, but I was like, I got to be honest. What's the one I'm excited about? I want to finally see Coyote versus Acme. Will Forte and Wile E. Coyote teaming up sounds like a great idea.
My son, when we saw Disclosure Day, saw that poster and he's like, "What is that?" And trying to unpack Looney Tunes, which he's unfamiliar with, and then like a meta commentary on Looney Tunes made me realize maybe why this has been such a hard sell. But yet, by the time I was done, he was like, "Oh, that sounds kind of funny." I'm like, yes, it does. And I'll be there. So
you just got to apply them with Roadrunner cartoons until then.
Those were always my favorite in the half hour of Looney Tunes block, was when the Roadrunner and Coyote came on. I was stoked. So Jen, fill us in on the rest of yours.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, I'm still feeling pretty good about mine because my first pick was The Odyssey, which, as far as we can tell, is still positioned to be the movie of the summer. And if the second round of ticket sales were any indication, I think the internet was on fire with people being like, "I gotta get my tickets." And I have Behemoth, which is the Tony Gilroy movie about musicians and composers, and that's still, there's no news there. That still seems on track. The Mandalorian Grogu, at least from a box office perspective, not helping my team necessarily, but I was personally very happy with it. So I think that's okay. And then all of a sudden, I believe won a prize at Cannes, or the 2 actresses won Best Actress, I want to say. Does anyone else know this?
Yes. The two actresses shared Best Actress at Cannes. Yeah. Virginia Efira and Tao Okamoto.
Awesome. And I think the response to that from critics who were on the ground that I remember listening to were saying that it was only positive, and ranging from, this was a little on the nose, but I still liked it, to this is like the best thing I've seen all festival. So apparently there's a very obvious scene involving a whiteboard, but other than that, I don't hear any complaints about it. A whiteboard and capitalism, I think, right?
What is my life except very obvious sines with a whiteboard? I mean,
yeah. When I heard that as a criticism, I'm like, you're speaking my language. Like, let's like, trying to explain society's ills on a whiteboard in a haphazard fashion. Like, this sounds great. So So yeah, I think people in general were positive, excited about that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Narnia got pushed, but still could. I didn't realize it was going to fall kind of in between our two drafts. So I think what happened to me with Dune Part 2, I just sort of claimed it anyway and said tough, even though everyone else was like, "That's not legal, Jen. You can't."
And that's not my memory. My memory was that it was like, no, it didn't count. But then we talked about it. But then
and then I think I refused that. I refused that idea.
Right.
So
I think this also shows there's no real like metric for measuring like winning. We don't have any sort of like point system. So yeah, we all have our own post-truth reality to live in, which is I'll set that up as the transition back to our movie.
Oh, good call. Good call. All right. I think that was a good, because I realized, between the awards that the international films got and the IMAX calendar moving, there was a lot of news that kind of impacted our standings.
In the outline, I wrote Palm de Fjord, and I forgot to say it out loud. So Palm de Fjord.
So the only thing I've heard about that movie that could put a wrench in your, even though it is a Palme d'Or winner, even though it is a Neon film, right? Because I think Neon had already purchased it going into Cannes. The only thing is I've heard that it is very potentially politically divisive. So the discourse, that's good for us probably, and for our show talking about it. But the discourse machine may take this movie down over the course of an Oscars campaign. So I'll just be prepared for that, Greg.
Well, but then all the teens who fell in love with Renata Reinsve in back rooms, true. Like, let's go check out Fjord. What are we doing tonight? Let's go see what's up with Fjord. We loved her in back rooms. Can't wait to be there with all the Gen Alphas. Which ones? Yeah, I think the Gen Alphas. Or maybe those are too young. Gen Zs. Some youngins who annoy me and text on their phone all movie. And I will see Fjord together. And it will be a fine time seeing a feature film at the movies.
Stop. Oh, no. Make it stop. Okay.
The person responsible for those jokes has been sacked.
All right, now I shouldn't have kept talking. I should have just moved us on when I did, and then that we wouldn't have had to experience that.
I set up a transition and everything.
You did, and I didn't take it. I'm sorry. So let's get back to talking about Disclosure Day, since that is one of the movies in Greg's hype draft. Let's see how it shakes out. We'll start with a short take. What did everybody think about Disclosure Day?
Since we just talked about Greg drafting it, I think he needs to go first.
Yeah.
So if anybody enjoyed/suffered through our 3-hour Spielberg draft, they know that there is no way I was at all going to be objective about this movie. And so take that as your grain of salt. But I thought this was great. I have some complaints. I don't think it was flawless. I have some things I would change. I think there are some pieces of this that don't entirely work. But on the whole, I am 2 thumbs up. I thought this was a great time. So I've seen the movie twice. I watched it by myself opening night and then took my son the second night. Just before I came down here to record, in a brazen attempt to ignore bedtime, he said to me, "Dad, we could go see Disclosure Day again. That would be really fun." I was like, we could go see Disclosure Day again. So he had a great time, and I did as well. The most important thing people should know if you're considering not seeing this is that you have to see Emily Blunt in this. I think the marketing, I think, was a little split, but leaned a little more towards Josh O'Connor. And both are good, but Emily Blunt is outstanding in this. And I think being the leading critic of hers in the wake of The Smashing Machine, I mean, we talked a lot about her in Devil Wears Prada 2. She's having a big year. I mean, all those are within one calendar year. I will say I think this film found a better use of her, and that she fit the role really well. And she has a couple kind of just jaw-dropping moments. Other than that, Spielberg, he's still got it. He's still got absolutely all of it. He's like, you want to see something that you've never seen a camera do before? I will do it twice. And absolutely incredible in the directing of all the action. There's one sequence here that I think is like side-splittingly funny. Even though it's kind of goofy, I laughed really, really hard. And I don't see, directors half his age with as much life in their films. It's really wonderful that we're seeing this rise that we talked about on our Obsession podcast of these young directors who are doing something really new and fresh. But it's also good to see the old guy come in and be like, hey, if you actually think about your craft and your storytelling, then you can make a pretty good time at the movies. PT, your head shakes have been mystifying. Some are in agreement, some are in disagreement. You ended up moving your head just in slow circles instead of nodding or shaking your head. What did you think of Disclosure Day?
I thought to keep it in short take, I was fascinated how much it felt like Steven Spielberg was implementing some of obviously not actually, but it felt like he was implementing some of the advice I try to give my students early in the semester, where it's like, don't care about like whether what you do is cringe or whether what you're doing is corny. Like, just do it. Like, just do it and put yourself out there and see what happens. And I think that is great to see and experience in the theater, to be like, yes, this guy is just putting it all out there. He doesn't think it's overwrought to do all these camera moves, because he's just like, no, that's how you make movies. This is how you tell a story. He's old school. He built the school. The school is named after him, and he's still doing it out there in the world, and all of that is wonderful. So that is super fun. I also really connect with the big ideas that are at the heart of this story. I don't know if the execution of the movie and maybe elements of the movie, and maybe particularly we might get into the screenplay of the movie, actually like implement those ideas as well as they could, or in a way that is super successful. This is a movie that kind of says, by its innate proposition, I think, to be like, suspend your disbelief and just come along for this ride. And that makes sense. But there's a lot of things you have to suspend your disbelief about, down to like basic fundamental logistics of character movements and like decision making, where it's like, oh, but okay. All right, I guess they just didn't do that. Or I guess they're not going to. Okay, that's fine. And we can get into that more. And there's a degree to which that's nitpicking. But I do think it accumulates enough that it's a little bit of like, oh, I wish that was tighter. Like, there's some astronomical numbers, like 40 something passes that this screenplay apparently had between Steven and David Koepp, his one of his frequent screenwriting partners, that they were passing, kept writing more and more drafts. And they got to this really high number and then filmed it. And I think they needed a few more, which we can talk about. But so it's this interesting sort of contrast of like, there's all these problems. I think there's flaws in this movie, but the experience of seeing it on the big screen, of seeing the Spielberg magic being sort of whipped up by the directing of it, the performances, I agree, Emily Blunt in particular, but I think in general the performances are good. That, if you're willing to give yourself over to it, then I had a really good time. But I do understand the sort of like, once you start sort of poking holes when you leave the theater, it starts to be like, wait a minute, what about this or that? Which is fine. We can discuss what that means, where things end up. But I had a really good time in the theater. I've been struggling with it a little bit, sort of looking back on it. But I'm also excited to see it again at some point. I'm not Henry level where I want to go again tonight. But I'm glad it's out there. I'm glad it's in the theater, and I'm glad the old master is still showing people how it's done. Jen, how about you?
So I didn't have your problem because I just never looked back after I saw this movie. And that part of that is because, I don't know, maybe talking about it over the course of this episode will help me, but I had a deeply emotional response to this movie. I was basically crying on and off through the entire third act. And and in my letterbox review, I said that I didn't totally know why all of the time, which I think is probably because of the things that both of you are talking about in terms of like maybe if you like squint and look at it more carefully, that wait, why does that make me an alien? That could be a spoiler. Don't answer that. I finally feel seen. Yeah, one. Never mind. Okay, any answer I give to that is going to be a spoiler.
Yeah.
I can't do it. But so, and it was one of those things where I think the character. It's a. We can get it more into it in spoiler mode, but there's like a meta level in which this movie's working that mirrors what's happening to the characters in the movie, and to me, the experience I had as a moviegoer, I think echoed what the characters experience in this movie, where they're just kind of like, this feels so powerful and so potent. I don't totally understand it, but it's having an impact on me anyway. And that I think is the best way to encapsulate how I reacted to this movie, where like there were certain scenes where I just like exploded with emotion and feeling, and it was like, and I was like, why am I doing it? It's like, I don't understand. And it is like, and then to me, it's like, that's demonstrative of Spielberg's just raw power as a director, where he knew what images to show me, what music, John Williams music to play, and how to compose every shot and every, like, in a way that it didn't actually matter if cerebrally I didn't totally understand what was happening in the scene, but that I felt something. And I feel like there's something to be said about that. I'm sure as we pick apart the screenplay in particular, and like, I think a lot of the critiques that I've heard and I anticipate that we're going to talk about, I think are actually largely intentional, but also counterproductive in terms of if you want to make a movie that people feel good about watching. Because I think my experience was I had this like amazing transcendent reaction. I'm wiping away tears as I'm walking out of the theater. And then it was basically like I went on the internet and then I was like, wait, what? Did I see the same movie as everybody else? So I'm really looking forward to unpacking that.
Well, and I referred to this in my review I wrote up today, but there was definitely a guy in my row at both screenings, I assume not the same guy, who just totally didn't buy into it and just was like sputtering and like, pah, pah, oh, yeah, like through the whole third act. And, you know, like everybody can react however they want, but I'm like, why are you here? Like, if you're not going to buy in on like a basic level, like you're talking about, then what did you expect but to be skeptical of what's coming here? So did you guys have that guy in your theater? Was he bi-coastal?
It wasn't loud, but after the movie, the feeling in the theater, and I'm not going to say that I'm going to compare the movies necessarily. It felt a lot like what I saw Eyes Wide Shut opening night, when people went in thinking it was going to be one kind of movie. They thought it was going to be this like sex-filled like relationship thriller that was like, because that's kind of how it was advertised, and they didn't know who Stanley Kubrick was. And then it was what it was. It was this weird psychological head trip of Tom Cruise wandering around backlot New York streets and having these weird encounters in an odyssey almost. The people were just like, oh, like that's it? Like that's what happened? Oh, this sucks. Like there was it was a lot of grumbling. I feel like leaving the theater was a lot of grumbling. I felt pretty into it. Like I was into it. I liked the last third of the movie, or the last act, I should say. And you know, I was welling a few times like over the course of the movie. But I do feel like the overall, like there was some energy for that. There was reactions to the movie, but I kind of feel like when it ended, a lot of people were like, okay. It sounds like Jen didn't have that experience.
Nope.
Were you in the theater alone? And so it was all just
no. So it was. I saw an IMAX, but it was a daytime screening, so my theater was maybe like half full. But it was one of those things where like I'm like choking back the tears because I'm like, it doesn't sound like other people are also crying in the way that I'm crying, and so I'm like trying to ball up and like like hide my tears. So I'm like, I hope nobody else notices that I'm just falling apart over here. So, but yeah, my theater, when the credits rolled, the lights came on, was like pretty quiet. Like nobody had like people weren't talking to each other about the movie as they were leaving or anything like that. So I don't know. Yeah. But it really was mostly on the internet that I was like, there's such a lot of the comments on social media are really vitriolic. Like they're like, this is an insult to movie making, and I can't believe Steven Spielberg thought people would like this. And it's just like, what?
Over the top vitriol on the internet? Are you sure?
Well,
did you have to look for that? What I will say is there is something, and I'm trying to make sure I say it in a way that isn't going to get into spoiler territory, but it's important probably to note that like there is something that's like at its core hopeful, and I think Spielberg in general comes in with like hopeful things. His movies of 2005, maybe notwithstanding that, but in general, he has a sort of like, okay, but like, couldn't things actually be in like this way as opposed to some other way? And I do think there's a lot of people who are pushing up against what he's presenting as being like, it's not fair to even be hopeful about this. It's actually just like anti-reality. Like you
like
are
delusional.
So detached. Yeah, you're so detached from how things have actually worked for the last decade that you think that like this sequence of events would lead to a positive response when reality has shown that isn't what would happen. And so I think that's what's getting people really mad is it's like I came to escape into this like sci-fi world, and instead I was given a lesson about how like we could be better as people, and we aren't, and we won't be. So like, screw you, Steven. Like, stop telling me what to do, boomer.
Right. I guess that makes sense. But to me, I just saw this movie, and maybe this will get us into recommendation algorithm in which we establish the audience of a film. But to me, it's to manage people's expectations. This movie felt to me like Spielberg providing a rebuttal to that idea, right? Like, and being like, no, we should demand better of ourselves. We should be like, even though the world is bleak and falling apart, like we can get through it, and this is how, right? Like that's what it felt like to me.
I agree, but I'm just saying, I think that people are like the verdict's in, like it's already over. Like you're arguing something that's been decided.
Well, it is an interesting thought experiment because I think people have the right to say, look at the world. We literally faced a global pandemic and we needed people to just band together in this minimal way to help us survive. And people are like, nah, I would like my freedom instead. And so like, I totally understand those readings. And I think the views you both just shared are also inflected through the fact that Steven Spielberg is a baby boomer, and your thoughts against his generation, I like shape how you react to him. And I've seen many people reading that like, oh, well, this is just, copium from a boomer who's like, yeah, you guys can all get together. And I do think that there's something different going on here. And, I think he's one of the good ones, even though he is from that generation that we all like to malign. So I will tell the honest truth, which is I had two movies in mind while I was watching this. One that is far superior to this movie, and one that is far, far inferior to this movie. And so to start with the inferior one, to get it out of the way, I was thinking a lot about Megalopolis as this played out, which is simply because this is a late career master, hopefully not his last film, as it seems Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis was his last film. But it does seem like this is a master trying to reflect on themselves, their craft, and the role that that's played in the world. The Big Picture podcast, which we're all fans of, made a similar connection very late in their discussion where they were like, oh my God, this is his Killers of the Flower Moon. So I would lump that in as well, that these are these kind of late era films from, great masters of American cinema, and the way in which they are acting as mediating factors in the kind of careers of them and in shaping the legacy. So Megalopolis is terrible, right? I had a fever dream earlier where I was remembering that at one point, Francis Ford Coppola puts the Pledge of Allegiance to the human race on screen, seemingly with the hope that we would all rise in the audience and recite it with the narrator as it plays out on screen. Do you remember that that's a thing that happened?
Oh, it happens, yes.
I had managed to repress that. Thanks, Greg.
But I do think there's something to the fact that, you know, this is Steven Spielberg trying to start to shape his legacy. And as he returns to these themes of aliens, as we established in the draft, this is him trying to put the third piece into that trilogy. And as he has said on the press tour, give his final word on this subject. And to me, the final word is something deeply hopeful, as PT alluded to. And whether we are too cynical to appreciate that hope is a totally different question than whether the hope is successful or not. The second film I'm going to put out there for recommendation algorithm is a film that I would watch pretty much every day over this one. I'm so sorry, Steven Spielberg. It's Children of Men. Children of Men is this brilliant personal story, a chase movie for a good chunk of the runtime, set amid the kind of plot happening in the background of like the world falling apart. And if people don't have Children of Men on DVD, you need to buy it because there's a commentary track by Zizek, who is just a fan of the movie and seems to have volunteered to do bonus features just because he likes to talk about it. But one of Zizek's primary points, yeah, Jen, like I could. I'll let you.
I mean, like, most people listening to this probably don't know who he is, right?
I can't even remember his first name. I thought I was going to seem smart by saying Zizek.
Of course, we all knew it's Slavoj Zizek.
Slavoj Zizek, who is essentially an intellectual, a philosopher, a critic out there in the world, somebody who shapes a lot of academic discourse and film theory, and he's like a good cultural theorist who you have to read in grad school. And he seems to just be a fan of Children of Men and volunteers to go into the booth and record his thoughts. And one of Zizek's primary thoughts is that like the brilliance of Children of Men is that you never actually focus on the meta narrative of what's happening in the world, that Clive Owen just passes through these scenes that are like their own movie in themselves. And yet you only get those snippets. And I really thought of that film a lot when you get these kind of traces of what's happening in the wider world or outside of these characters. And I do think the humanity at the core of Children of Men is stronger than the humanity here. But I did feel like we're getting a nice, good, juicy savior narrative. And some flashy camera tricks. I mean, nothing will ever beat. Do you guys watch the Children of Men bonus features as much as I do? The footage of them doing the 360 camera spins in the car are unbelievable. Like, please get on YouTube right now, listeners, if you have not seen this footage. But they are like choreographed athletic events as they just try to film this scene, never mind the acting. So those are the two movies I would say came to mind as I watched Disclosure Day. But I am not recommending that you watch Megalopolis.
I like both of those choices. Again, not because I like the movie Megalopolis, but because I like them in conjunction with this. I do think they get at one of the key things I was thinking about, which is like, this is not a movie to recommend to people that are like, you know what I like is science fiction movies about aliens. Because that's not as prominent as it seems the marketing might have made it appear. It is much more a conspiracy thriller chase movie of like the government agents or government affiliated agents are trying to chase down these people who are on the run with the sort of secret information. So the movies, I think this is a very sort of 70s vibe to it. I also think we can maybe discuss this more later when we have full disclosure time for all elements of the movie. But I do think, Greg, to your point, in tying into Megalopolis, there's a lot of like this being developed by Steven Spielberg is like, this hopefully isn't my last movie, but if it were, what if I was touching upon all these things from my career and had these elements in, and that sort of dual Sugarland Express, like that, those elements of his 70s movies, plus obviously Close Encounters of the Third Kind, of people feeling a pull from different areas coming together. And then I would also kind of put the Alan J. Pakula movies from the 70s, Clute, All the President's Men and the Parallax View as these sort of like, you know, paranoid, these people are out to get me, and also trying to like unravel the mystery of what's happening. I mean, I would say certainly All the President's Men is, I mean, based on a true story. Maybe this is too. We can discuss that. But All the President's Men definitely based on a true story, and I think that movie holds together a lot more effectively as an unraveling of a mystery. But I think that's much more of the vibe, but with the sort of momentum of pretty constant chase scenes for long stretches that come from those early Spielberg years, Duel, Sugarland Express. So, I think if there's one movie, even though, well, whatever. I don't want to get into it too much, but I think the one movie it feels the most like is Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but is different in many ways, and the differences are because instead of it being more about just these individuals' sort of detachment and loneliness being fulfilled by this mysterious quest, it's more about this sort of us versus them conspiracy thriller, which is interesting. I think that's an interesting dynamic to add in.
Yeah, and I think that's half of what I was going to say in terms of trying to be helpful to viewers who are like, what kind of movie is this? Like, am I going to like it? And to say that it's less War of the Worlds and more Close Encounters of the Third Kind, right? In terms of the mood and the type of how much action you're going to get versus, or like the type of action you're going to get versus the sort of the focus of the movie, I think, is not necessarily on aliens are attacking, we got to survive, right? Like in the way that War of the Worlds is, it's a lot more kind of like like humanity in existential crisis and dealing with things that you don't understand and stuff like that. So it is a lot more abstract, I think, in its aims than a lot of people probably were expecting going in. And I'm wondering if a lot of the backlash about it of being like, this was so boring or whatever, like has to do with that people were just expecting something else.
I felt, again, that's why in my mind, the experience was similar to the Kubrick Eyes Wide Shut experience. I think the people who in the moment in the theater around me who were a little bummed were people that were like, I thought this was going to be an alien invasion movie. Like, what are we doing? And like, it was this other thing. And, they weren't ready to take the ride that Steven was offering them. And they were a little annoyed. And I think they kept thinking we were on the verge of an hour of movie when we were going to have this other thing. And that's not really, that's not what we get. That's not what this movie's about.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say for the Spielberg fans out there is that a lot of people are sort of framing this movie, and rightly so, as like the end of a sort of more theoretical trilogy. If you have E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T., and then this movie, Disclosure Day. To me, the sort of like packaging that I was doing in my head while I was watching the movie was E.T., the Fabelmans, and then this movie. Because I do think there's like an arc of like psychological reckoning that you could sort of trace through those three movies. And especially thinking about Spielberg as an auteur, right? Because like one thing that you kind of sign up for when you have a filmmaker who is considered an auteur is that they have certain themes and ideas and motifs that they just can't get away from, right? That they're always trying to come back to, but that when you see them at different stages in their lives and in their careers, they have different things to say about them, right? And I do think that's what's super interesting inserting this movie into Spielberg's filmography, is that there are a lot of things that we've dealt with before in his past movies, but I think the end product here is very different. And the product of him being much older than when he made like E.T.
I think that's exactly right. I was debating in my head, I might package, because you're right, people are packaging up the trilogy that you mentioned, and by people we actually mostly mean Steven Spielberg himself. Like that's what he is out there saying about it. But I kind of to merge what you two said, I might make a little trilogy of dual E.T. Fablemans as like the predecessors that like most fit into what this feels like. And when Fablemans came out, we heard a lot of critics saying like, this is the skeleton key that unlocks all of Spielberg's previous works. You'll understand them a lot better through this lens. And there's definitely a lot of that here, but also things he said on his many podcast appearances, which, in case it's not clear, these are a gift that he's out there just talking this much and we get so much time with him. Download his Michelle Obama episode, download his rewatchables. They're all worth your time. He also the morning after we did our hype draft, I was like doing the morning dishes and like making the coffee and all that. And I saw that Coleman Domingo was on the new Amy Poehler episode that dropped on. I was like, oh, I'll listen to Coleman Domingo. That'll be fun. And who starts that episode but Steven Spielberg? She talks to Steven Spielberg for like 15 minutes before she gets to Coleman Domingo. So I was like, man, I can't escape this guy. One of the things he's revealed is how much the creation of the Fabelmans impacted him. And some of those stories are directly put into this film, which I think is fascinating, that he is suggesting that how I got to this deeper truth, how I got to this understanding is meaningful beyond my personal experience and could be meaningful for all of us. Jen, I am tiptoeing up to that line and like at risk of
we
falling
gotta go
over
into spoiler
it.
mode.
So you better take it.
All right. So this is our disclosure day. If you do not wish to know anything further, again, we have come dangerously close several times to spoiling this movie. If you do not want any spoilers, here is your chance to leave and return, much like Steven Spielberg does to certain themes in his movies. Go take a break, return, and rejoin us for the rest of the conversation. Okay. All right. So Greg, who again graciously made the outline for me for today, thank you, Greg, says that the big revelation is that there is no big revelation. Greg, do you want to unpack that a little bit for us?
So I think a lot of people after the marketing came out, and you know, we can't ascribe the marketing to Spielberg, but I don't want to vilify Universal, I guess, either. But the marketing made it seem like you'll never believe what the old master has done. Get ready to experience so much more than what we're showing you right now. And it turns out it was pretty much exactly what they showed us. Like, when Jen talks about those crazy parts of the internet, I think a lot of them thought, okay, so disclosure day. So the world finds out about aliens in Act 1, and then we see what happens. And so the big revelation here is just that the disclosure day does not happen until the final kind of 20 minutes of the film. And it is much more about building our way towards the disclosure instead of the aftermath of the disclosure, which I think is probably what a lot of people kind of have more questions about. So that was my intention with that comment. There was no big twist, no big death, no big craziness to drop in. So I'll throw it back to Jen first, because she never gets to talk first. Jen, what do you make of that choice? I mean, it sounds like you were too busy crying to think about it rationally, but like,
to overcome.
Were you surprised by that? Do you think it was an interesting choice? Do you think this is part of what got some of those negative reviews?
Yeah, I mean, I think I got so swept up in the movie itself that I didn't really think about that too much. But now that you're mentioning it, to me, that mostly seems like a marketing failure, right? Like, don't hype up the disclosure as the impetus for the plot if the fight over disclosure is the plot. And I think that seems like a core misunderstanding that they probably could have avoided. But is the alternative probably was Emily Blunt's acting real weird. What do we do? And I don't know if that's better. You know what I mean? Like, that's more accurate to the mystery that you follow throughout the movie, is like weird things are happening. There's the secret that needs to be kept, or there's the secret that Wardex will kill people to keep, but we're running away with it. We're trying to get it out there. Like, that is the core plot of the movie. But like, how do you advertise that without, I don't know. Yeah, this is why I'm not in marketing, because I don't know how I advertise this movie accurately without like diffusing all of the energy it has. I don't know.
Right. It feels like the ideal thing would be like, oh, let's not let anyone know it's about aliens. But like, also,
well, that would never happen.
Spielberg making a movie about aliens is like the big hook for the movie. So I think if this was like Joe Q guy who made this movie, they can maybe be like, there's a government secret. What's the government been covering up? Blah, 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 blah. And then they can maybe roll with that. But like, given the dynamics, I don't think there's really a way around that. I will say I never saw either of the trailers for this movie. I only ever saw the teaser, which I don't really know the difference now between teasers and trailers beyond like what they're tagged on YouTube. Like it was a 2.5 minute ad for the movie. Right. I would call that a trailer. I would think of teasers as like under a minute, but whatever. But the like that, I felt like, okay, like I have a pretty good grasp on what's going on and what's going to happen in this movie, but I didn't feel like I was promised more. The two actual trailers, which I watched after seeing the movie, show everything up to the last 5 minutes of the movie. Like it's got so much stuff there. So I could see how people were like, this must be the first half of the movie or even just the first 2 acts. And then things will get real nuts in the last act and we'll go even further. And it's like, no, like this is that thing that looks crazy is 15 minutes away. Like that other thing is 10 minutes from the end. And then the end is just, it cuts off when it's time to start talking about the disclosing. So sorry. So I do think that is a marketing fueled, maybe negative reaction to this, which is not fair to the movie because it's not the movie's fault.
Maybe the strategy to go with would have been not that this is in the movie, but testimonials about alien encounters. Like, you know what I mean? Like do like a montage of interviews of people being like describing a weird thing that they saw. And that, cause that most mirrors the experience that Margaret and
Daniel,
that Margaret and Daniel have, right? Is that they sense that something at some point changed about them and something happened to them, but they can't quite get there, but it's powerful enough that they're willing to go along with it anyway. And I think capturing that feeling, I think probably would have been both more accurate and maybe manage people's expectations a little more. I don't know. Yeah. It's hard to say. To me, the mystery of what is happening with like the powers that Margaret seems to have was enough to kind of keep me on the hook. I wasn't at any point questioning like, when are the aliens going to get here? You know, like, I don't know. It seems like I'm in the minority there.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, I don't think the problem of the movie is the like number of aliens. I actually think it was kind of maybe a good choice to sort of go in this other direction.
I might even subtract one.
But well, okay.
Yeah. I don't think it needed the one at the end. Well, we can, I mean, do you want to talk about it now, I guess?
I don't think that was a problem. I think, I mean, the whole end worked for me. Like I thought it was working with the caveat of, if we just put images onto the news, like on cable news, and then put that to the network, then everyone would watch it and be like, oh, I guess that's the truth. And then we would change our policies. Yeah, that's what happens. That's how things work in the world. But emotionally, and again, the sort of the hope of with something that's so radical and this a brand new thing will shake us to our core, and they will be able to teach us that we need to like make this connection, because if they've been around for 79 years doing, making visits and doing stuff, but they never attacked us and they're not here aggressively. So we don't need to sort of have our hackles up, like defending ourselves. Actually, we can make a connection. So I love all that, again, theoretically, and in much of the execution, or at least a bunch of the execution, I did really like that. And I thought the idea of it being like this chase movie is interesting. There's something very fun, like when I was watching it, about like, it's fun that it is this like conspiracy thriller and it's buying into, this conspiracy. I didn't realize a couple of things. One was how much of the alien lore in the movie is actual UFO-ologist, real life, like the phrase. I didn't know the phrase Disclosure Day was a real like alien interest term. Like that's not like something Spielberg and David Koepp came up with. Like they've been building for decades about like there's going to be a Disclosure Day when they'll finally tell us. The Richard Nixon and Jackie Gleason story is a real myth that's been around since the 70s. Apparently Jackie Gleason's wife said it happened in a biography in the 80s. Who knows? Although there's also two versions of it. One is that it's Nixon and one is that it's a random Man in Black CIA kind of guy. But like, and a lot of the sort of when they show the actual images of the files from the weird USB sticks he's been carrying around, those are showing actual like visualizations of real reports, and the real nerds, the real heads can identify like that's the New Jersey of 1952 and that's the like 1998 sighting and wherever. So that's really cool. And I guess I didn't realize how much Steven Spielberg is like, yeah, this is all true. Like I made this movie because this is true, and I want to just say like it'll be good if when this comes out, because like I think it'll be good for humanity, and maybe this will be the jolt humanity needs to come together. When I did sort of watch the movie thinking that Steven Spielberg was like, wouldn't it be funny if, but I think he really buys it. I think he really believes it, that that they're out there and they're doing it. And he's legitimately annoyed that they haven't come to see him yet.
I mean, Barack Obama confirmed it for Steven beforehand, it would seem, and then for us all, only to walk it back. Yes, and so, I think in the end, I'm really glad that this doesn't connect directly to Close Encounters or to E.T. I don't know that a direct connection to E.T. was ever in the mix. And yet, like I wrote in the outline, like, unless it's like a really thin, like you could argue that those events happened in this world. I was debating with my son upstairs. One of those, they obviously, when the disclosure day finally happens, they show the footage from Roswell, New Mexico. And the news anchor responds at one point, it looks like there's a civilian there amongst them leading the efforts. And I was like, it's Indiana Jones, man. Like, it's got to be like he was there. And my son and I have definitely already watched Kingdom of the Crystal Skull since seeing Disclosure Day. So I liked all of that, and we'll get more into the Fablemans of it all in a moment. But like, oh, you know what's true? The things that are hidden on old film canisters. Boy, do we have some secrets that need to come to light on those. Like, yeah, I don't know, my parents' marriage falling apart, my mom's affairs. So it's all like, it's so Spielberg at the end there. Two things that I need to shake my fist at the internet about. Number one, I have heard multiple podcasts and seen multiple people who are like, this is so dumb. They just do the thing where we're all watching giant screens again and the whole world is like reacting to this. And I want to say, like, number one, you're wrong. There is not that like shot of Times Square where everybody's watching this on a screen, or the shot of Trafalgar Square, which we've seen in Independence Day and The Martian and all of these. I think Spielberg is very smart to be like, yeah, we don't do that anymore. We're all in the subway car with our face in our own phone. And this is not pushing back at you specifically, PT, but like, I agree that like the young, cool urban city dwellers are not watching local news. But I can tell you minute by minute what's on the local newscast where my mom is based on her text messages. I was podcasting live on air the other day, and I got a message that was, Greg, have you seen these strange popcorn vessels that are happening at theaters? And I was like, why, yes, Mom. And I have no doubt the Today Show just did a news story about the popcorn bucket craze as a part of that. And so like, I kind of interpret that ending to be, it's starting here, it's going to reach a certain crowd. But then how I'm sure you both and I encounter local news these days is it just gets picked up and chopped up and moved through the machine of internet content creation. And we very rarely see the screen that people are looking at. So like, okay, maybe I'm making excuses for Spielberg. I'll take it. But to me, it's like, yeah, we would all just be looking at little bits. I interpreted that less as we're all watching the same live news channel because we all tune into MSNBC, don't we? I don't even think MSNBC exists anymore. But whatever news station is run out of 30 Rock, thanks for the cross promotion, Universal. We just don't. That's not how it happens, but we all read that content. I think this is the argument that is essentially being made about late night, right? Nobody's watching Colbert or Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon because Jimmy Fallon sucks, but nobody's watching those other shows live on air, but we're all seeing those clips after the fact. So that's a little bit of my kind of yelling at the internet, because that's how I think the ending is supposed to work. And you can certainly push back and say, that's not how it works. And then the second piece of that is that like the other super cynical take I'm seeing is, yeah, you know what would never happen? People actually watching this and changing their minds. And I think the film is pretty deliberate in how it makes this look like the horrifying footage we see out of the US about the treatment of immigrants in this country. And we have a huge list of problems. That problem is not solved, but I will say it made me think a lot about the time in the first Trump administration where there were video cameras inside one of those detention centers in Texas, and we all actually heard the cries of children being forced into these cages and separated from their parents, and we changed things fast. Now, unfortunately, that change then became, well, we just don't let cameras into these places. So I just want to offer that, like, video does matter, and these things do matter, and there is a way in which I think Spielberg is not 100% out of left field to say, like, maybe we could actually get over our divisions and come together. So, all right, I'm a boomer apologist. I'll take it, internet, but that's how I felt.
I thought a lot, weirdly, about Devil Wears Prada 2 during this movie because, and it felt so good at the time to watch broadcast journalism be the most important thing, you know, in our modern society. Like, so I do understand. I don't think that no one would watch news like that critique is valid. Like, just the idea that, like, that's not realistic, like, or the way he portrays it is not realistic. But I do think the, like, the version of the post that we get at the end of the movie where they're like, cut to this, like, it really feels like almost romanticizing broadcast journalism in a way that doesn't acknowledge, and maybe it doesn't have to, but doesn't acknowledge the sort of, like, shift in media and its role that The Devil Wears Prada 2 does, which we complimented that movie a lot on, to be like, look, it's showing that, like, magazines are dying and that this doesn't have the same place in our culture that it used to. Whereas I can sort of see people being like, less about the way news spreads, or like that something that would be so catastrophic or game-changing or important would capture the attention of everyone at the same time. Like, I think that's still possible, but more just that like broadcast journalists are as important as they seem in this movie, I think is maybe a little inaccurate, but it did feel good to watch that.
So I think you're right, Jen, and I certainly am not going to fight with you, mostly out of respect to you as supreme ruler of this podcast. But like, to me, I do think it is not fair either to say it's a total fantasy, right? That Devil Wears Prada 2, and you're right, we did praise that a lot more than we're being critical here. We were saying, like, yeah, it's a fantasy, but it's there. I worry that we are not considering what people in, say, I don't know, Kansas City have as a relationship to their local news, that I think they might appreciate it a lot more than, you know, what we do on the coast.
Well, I agree with what you're saying. I do think I want to be clear that I didn't necessarily have the problem with it being sort of at a TV station, or that it was going out over sort of, you know, older media, broadcast media. I was relaying complaints about the internet. I think there's things too that are like these little moments where it's a little bit like, you know, it's a little hand wavy, or it's, you know, it's asking you to suspend your disbelief. Like, you know, they want to address the, like, these could be fake, but instead they have, you know, they have one person in the control room who's like, well, these could be AI. They're like, don't worry, we checked. It's got ground truth pixels. And it's like, what does that mean? Like, I'm sure that's an actual term, but like, I don't think that means they could check that in like 5 seconds as like this 80 years of information is being uploaded into a server. But I do think one great thing to come out of that end part that I think, you know, works really well in conjunction with the characters we've been following all along is Courtney Grace, who plays the news anchor, who is sort of, you know, the network news anchor who's sort of like thrown this stuff. Is like, okay, this information's just come in. And I think she did a really good job of being a realistic news anchor. She was a news anchor, has now become an actor. And that served her well here, I think. And to me, it really spoke to people who are in breaking news situations or momentous things. And, you know, in my mind, I would, and maybe this is my own just whatever history of thinking about things, I was thrown to people that are like stuck in real, like, sort of tragedy situations where it's like, wow, so I'm looking at this. Okay, we think this is happening. And like that, like I have seen some complaints which don't sound like people who've never watched breaking news, I guess, on TV. Maybe they're too young. Maybe they're just too detached. Where they're like, why would you just narrate like a sporting event, like what you're seeing? And I'm like, that's what they do. That's what a news anchor does when they're getting footage they don't know about it, or be like, okay, or something live's happening. They're like, well, this is what we're seeing. I'm seeing this thing, and then like she did a really good job of being like, so we're seeing this thing. I don't know what that is. Oh, I don't know what's going on, or like, oh, so I guess that oh. And like that kind of reaction, I think worked really well. And it was a big swing to have this random person come in the last like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and get a huge sort of like the ball's given to her, be like, carry this and show the emotional reaction to it. And I think that worked really well. Again, if you're bumping up against the like, all we have to do is show the information and everybody will get on board with the reality of it. And like, that's a problem for you. Maybe that's not going to win you over, but her reaction was getting, maybe not as far as Jen was in terms of emotional welling, but I was still like I was feeling it. I was in that Spielberg face mode watching all of this unfold. And I think she was a big part of it.
Absolutely. And she, to me, is an early front runner for our LTR award of the actor who comes in and steals one scene.
Featured performer.
Yeah. Excuse me. Like you, PT, I was definitely thinking of Charlotte Denon, the New York One reporter who was live outside Central Park when Santa Claus landed in, right? Like, that's the breaking news? No. Oh, that's the movie Elf. But, like, it's such a hard part, and yet the end really only works because of her, because she becomes the audience surrogate so that we understand and can start to picture ourselves processing this. And there's a little Cronkite in it. There's a little bit of like every late night election reporter when we start to see the picture finally come together, for better or worse, of who's going to be president. And I was just completely knocked out by that performance within it. So yeah, absolutely featured reporter, here for it. I don't know if I'm even rooting that she gets more parts, but she killed it on this one.
The part that really got to me was when she got upset and then apologized to the audience. I'm so sorry that you're having to see this in real time with me. Like, it was like, and again, like if we're thinking about everything that someone might accuse the movie of being outdated for as being kind of an argument in defense of, this is a really good example of that, because it's like, yes, could a million different TikTokers and YouTubers be doing something similar when they react to something in real time on video? Sure, but there's something that Spielberg's capturing about the idea that everyone is sharing the same moment that it seems so much more human because it is unified. So I guess the defensive monoculture is sort of what he's going for there. But do you know what I mean? Like that moment feels so human because it is one human reacting to what they're seeing in real time, as opposed to something that is overly curated or overly edited, and in the way that like some YouTubers go for like a verite style. You know what I mean? Like there's some YouTubers that like try to create a sense of verite, like they're making a documentary, right? But at the same time, it's so overwrought or so staged that it like lacks humanity. And I feel like this is arguing for why, hey, it was actually really great when everyone was going through a terrible tragedy. We could have someone like a news anchor to sort of like keep us all together or something, or not to experience it together. I don't know.
Well, and like the other thing I want to fight the internet about related to this is just like the rest of it will happen, right? Like It's like, oh, people wouldn't get it. They get this way, they get that way. They'd see it on TikTok, or YouTubers will pick it apart and say why it's fake and all that. It's like, yeah, that can still all be a part of this story. The film does not say. The film says it grabs everybody's attention. And I would still assert that a viral piece of video does that to this day. It doesn't necessarily say it's going to hold people's attention. And yeah, Fox News and NBC will share the feed together. And so will all the countries of the world all share the feed in one, but of course they'll all go back to their usual BS the next hour. It's fine. The film is not saying that this will change everything, but it's letting you wonder about if it could and if that would. And one of my theses about this movie is, in an age of like movies talking to the lowest common denominator and making sure if you're second screening that you're still participating in the movie, this is not doing that. This is somebody saying, like, I'm not interested in that, and I will give you all the pieces you need, but you got to work and you got to think critically. And there's obviously a lot of that in the air with the AI movement and so on, just to throw like all the big major buzzwords in at one time. But like, to me, this is a movie that pushes back against all of that and makes you work if you want to like piece it all together. And I love that about this. Until you look too hard, like PT said, and then it gets a little rough. But
and there were a couple times where it was like when Emily Blunt goes to rescue Josh O'Connor from the base, and it was just sort of like, I can drive up and I can just tell people their deepest secrets or connect with them at a deep level and they won't bother me, so I don't need to worry about all these guards. I can get through all the gates. I can do all of that. And like, she turns into someone else in Colin Firth's eyes and talks to them, and it's just sort of
his wife, presumably late wife,
which is very clear, and until someone is like, what was that? And he goes, she looked like my dead wife. And it's just like, okay, there's a little bit of David Koepp's second screen prepping for the audience where it's like, we know guys, like we could figure that was what happened. You didn't need to say, turn to someone else and say, she looked like my wife. It's like, yeah, we got it.
Star Wars fan minute. I didn't catch it, but Anthony King, friend of the program, caught it. Vernester Rowe is in that scene. Did you catch this?
I didn't, but I also only saw via the internet that the guy from Avengers who says there's always men like you to Loki is also in that scene as one of the people she turns into.
That's awesome. That's
great. All right. To segue from one amazing performance that we have lots of great things to say about to another, I do want to unpack the success of Emily Blunt's performance. I also want to say Josh O'Connor, very good in this movie. Like, I think people being like, oh, but Emily Blunt, yeah, like, but that doesn't mean that he's bad or like
his role's less showy.
Yeah, his character has less to do than hers,
and he is saddled with a little more of the exposition than she is, because he does know more in the beginning, even though he doesn't know sort of the full like how they got to where they are, but he knows, like, which is great. It starts in media res, sort of like it's not like we start on the first day when he's like, I'm going to work with this guy and steal this stuff. Like, they're in the middle of it, and that's great. But yeah, I think some of the clunkier moments of explaining what's going on are on Josh O'Connor's shoulders, whereas Emily Blunt is sort of more free to just sort of react to what's going on, and because it's all new to her. And I think that helps her performance stand out more.
Greg, why do you think she stands out?
She's great in this. I mean, she's not being
why?
very
Provide your reasoning.
If I were to hold up my phone and let you scroll through my algorithm right now, you would see it's like 50% Disclosure Day press tour. Like, I've clearly watched enough of these videos and so on. So one of the things that popped up in said feed is her first day on this movie was the day she had to speak flawless Russian and also act like she wasn't speaking flawless Russian. So to me, what makes this so perfect is Emily Blunt fits the part really nicely. She is very believably like a kind of overstyled small city weather woman, and I say that like lovingly, that those people have hard jobs, but like there's this mockery of it at the beginning with the weather shimmy, which I threw into PT's introduction because I'm a nice guy, is like, yeah, like she just fits into that character, and you understand who this person is. Somebody who's striving, somebody who wants to be more, somebody who wants to hit that anchor desk and yet is stuck like in the kind of awful superficial world of being a weather shimmy girl, right? And like, it is crazy. And then from that moment, we get the visitation, which, you really have to now understand that an alien entered into her trendy loft and activated her and gave her the, her abilities fully realized. And from that moment on, I never stopped believing that Emily Blunt wasn't both herself and experiencing those moments. I could list like 4 favorites, but the big one for me was actually the first after the Russian, the interaction with the cop. The way she rolls through every bit of dialogue in that scene with funny little hand gestures and like changes in intonation, it was like so incredibly clear that she was channeling a power beyond herself and then kind of coming in and out of that. And then the first of the 2 great, incredible long takes in this movie is her entering into the television studio, where she has like 4 or 5 completely different, very specific interactions with different people, intervenes in somebody's domestic abuse, gets chewed out by her boss, helps the translator understand the Korean, all on her way to what has been the greatest moment in the trailers, which is her starting the weather broadcast and slipping into the clicking. And like, I mean, I want to be over oneers because they're way overused now, but like, come on, that was incredibly well choreographed, blocked, directed, and acted. It's just, I haven't seen a scene like that in the movies this year, with all love to everything we've talked about already.
I refuse to ever be over oneers if Spielberg's behind them. Come on, like, the man's a master. It's so good. And yeah, I think that's a great shout, because it's the directing sort of flourish of having that, starting from her pulling the car up outside, going into the studio, going through the lobby, then going to the set. She goes back to makeup, then comes out, all that like in the Wonder. But then she also has to hit all those marks, have those different conversations, have those kind of those movements in and out. My favorite part of the Korean interaction, where it was like, when did you learn Korean? She goes, I don't know Korean. Like, what? Like, it just like how it doesn't even like, she can't fathom, like, that's a weird thing for someone to say, which is great. In the moment, it seems so weird, but then, obviously makes sense more in retrospect. So yeah, I think that works really great. I did like the sort of the panic attack she has after, when she gets on the train, which is very fun to sort of, I mean, actually maybe I shouldn't say fun, but I enjoy that there was this sort of the big action, maybe the biggest action set piece is that sort of train sequence, the main sort of thug minion guy, henchman trying to push their car into the train. And then the whole sequence of them getting onto the train, that like, these are not people, this isn't Indiana Jones, who's just like, oof, adjust my hat, brush off the dust and move on. But she's like, oh my God, like, that was crazy. And I almost died. And of course, to again, do the callback, very Fabelmans, that like, conveniently, we're here with all of our pianos, touch the strings of the piano. You're the empathy side. You're the music side. You're the person who is grounded there. I, the man, will be the math engineering tech person who will figure that part out. But you calm yourself through the strings of the music and the tactile feel there. But that worked really well as well. And so, yeah, I mean, I think she had a really good performance.
I was just going to say, it's crazy that from the second the train sequence starts exactly how it will unfold. You're like, okay, the car gets dragged, then they will, there's another train coming. They will at the last second get up the ladder and slide right in. And it's like, I don't care that I know all that. It still is like, and second viewing, I was still holding my breath. Like, come on. It's just mastery. And I will throw in, if people haven't heard this from the press tour, that was a sequence he wanted to do in Duel. Like, in Duel, the crazy tractor trailer truck was going to push the car with, the protagonist in it into a train, and they couldn't do it and they couldn't afford it. And so on. So like that's awesome. Like, the fact that it connects so deeply to his first major film and then to the Fabelmans, it's like this is just so fun for deep Spielberg fans.
Well, and to go, I mean, to go even deeper in that regard, obviously there's also the sort of like his young Sammy Fabelman's fixation on the train sequence and wanting to make a train sequence in that movie, which is of course based on his life. But even if you want to go before his first major movie and say his amateur movie Firelight, is like he had this sci-fi movie idea when he was a teenager, and it seems like he's at least been growing on top of that. Like it really became Close Encounters, but part of it became E.T. And he's had a couple other alien things that were not fully his original idea, between War of the Worlds and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. H.G. Wells and George Lucas, in turn, being the true authors there. But yeah, he's mining his like childhood pre-professional movie as well to bring forward. I also like that one of the both of the significant others of our dyad main characters are Nepo babies. One of them is the Nepo baby of the star of his first theatrical movie, Goldie Hawn. So it's not just tapping into the car chase elements of Sugarland Express, but he even generationally has her son in here. Jen, I'm very sorry to report the other Nepo baby is related to a famous Irishman. I hope you're okay with that.
I know who that is. Just so you know.
Okay.
Do you want to tell the audience?
Oh, sure. Old Paul Hewson, a.k.a. Bono, is the father of Eve Hewson, who plays Julia, right? Jane
Blankenship, which I still insist is a call out to the world's greatest secretary from Mad Men, Ida Blankenship.
Oh, nice.
She was an astronaut.
The only thing I'll add that we haven't said about Emily Blunt specifically in her performance in this is that her humor really helps deepen the character, I think, because in the midst of her doing all the things that you just said that she can do, and clearly conveying that something deeply otherworldly is happening to her, and yet she has no idea, right? Like that alone is a challenge enough. But she has a couple moments that just really cracked me up where, so there are two in particular I can think of. One is where she makes fun of the fact that both she and Daniel are driving maniacs. She's like, clearly we are like can't be trusted behind the wheel of a car. Like we've been driving like crazy. I thought that was really funny. And then towards the end when they're like, did you want makeup? And she goes, yeah. And I'm like, that's Devil Wears Prada coming through right there. That's really good. But I'm sure there are more to them. I'm just not thinking of right now. But I feel like her bubbliness, I think it like really lends a lot to the character.
Oh, absolutely. And that scene where the two of them are like just trading remarks after she finally connects them, and they're in the car, and she's like in the moment, but also reacting to the small glimpses she gets into. Oh, you were in jail. That must have been really hard. Oh, okay. And you're right. It is bubbliness and effervescence. The standout comedy moment for me was her berating Wyatt Russell for him not being able to run over her phone, which just cracked me up. It's like, you missed it again. Like, no, come on. I also just because we sometimes forget movie making. I also just thought she was awesomely styled. Like the way she rolled into that military base PT mentioned and is wearing like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like, it's a trendy coat, but kind of a silly coat. And, is just kind of in her yellow sweater, like so out of the norm of this space. Like she just like, she always felt like a really real person, and that we were just, again, I mean, I wrote it in the pre-spoiler section, like she's having a really weird day, and that's like the energy she brings to it. Like, this is a weird day. Like, and I loved it. I loved every minute of that.
But then she's also like super kind and empathetic. Like even in the moment where she's correcting the Korean translator, and he says, oh, I guess I just must have missed that nuance. And she says like, oh, it's not your fault. Don't worry about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like she's just so like the inflection of all of her lines to other people is just so kind that I think is, again, reinforcing this idea that she's like pure empathy embodied, walking around the earth.
And even in the military base, when she's in that crowd PT mentioned, every single interaction she has where she has looked in someone's eyes and understood all the secrets. Like, think of all the things she saw in this day, in these awful people, but not a single interaction is anything other than empathy, right? Yeah. And it goes back to the cop at the beginning where she's like, oh yeah, get the reservation, do the thing with the claws. It's so funny. That's good. It's really good. And it's just like, to me, you're right. It's reinforcing this theme of empathy being the great superpower. And like, what are we all freaking seeking these days except to be seen and validated as being real and having concerns that matter in our social media, in whatever? Like that's, we are all so desperate to be validated in that way. I think it is totally works for me as a superpower.
All right. Greg had some basic plot questions on here that we probably should have done earlier, honestly, to clear up some things. But what is the exact power, or what is the exact power set of the MacGuffin wand things? Like, so the three little, what do they call them? They're like
the devices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciated on House of R, they were referred to it immediately as the sonic screwdriver. Because
nice.
Like, it kind of does anything, just whatever you need it to do. I mean, I think it's just powerful alien technology, or even just powerful extra worldly materials that like you can interact with and do things with. And this is what they figured out they can do is you can get in other people's minds. You can, what is it, dive? I think is how they just refer to it as the technique is the dive. They also say in the beginning that it is a weapon that could kill everybody when he's first like wielding it. Josh O'Connor is first wielding it outside the wrestling match, which of course, as we all know, is how this movie was going to open with a local independent wrestling match. I did
shot in first person. Yeah,
yes.
That's crazy.
It's a boot hitting you in the face. Well, I did. Now I don't remember. I listened to a few podcasts about this, and now I can't remember which one it was. But I think it was Sean Fennessy noting the idea of kayfabe, which is an idea in wrestling where you act like the stories are real. Like that's part of the thing. Is like if anybody comes up and asks you, like, and the script for the storyline is like you're in a fight with this guy, you're in a some sort of rivalry type thing, even if you guys are really buddies and you hang out all the time and like get beers together, you're just like, I hate that guy, and that like maybe the reality we live in is just a kayfabe because actually there's aliens coming to visit us and all this stuff we're gonna end up going to World War III over, and all these tensions we have are made up storylines that we're just following, even though there's a bigger real truth that exists beyond. So maybe, or it's just fun to open on a wrestling match. But yeah, so the device is like it can blow people up, and apparently if someone picks it up and doesn't know anything about it, it can make them invisible or teleport them, because that one guy in the from the goon squad, the sort of the bad guys, picks it up and then just poofs away for a minute and then comes back and is confused. So yeah, I think it just can kind of do anything, which is fine. But I just to say, not to be like hypercritical about it, but I do think one of the issues with the movie is there's a lot of things where like you have to kind of be like, okay, like what's the explanation on that? Okay, like that's fine. And this is one of them where it's just like, what does that device do? Lots of things. It's like, so like, how do you know that we haven't really figured it out? Like the humans, we haven't figured it out. We just kind of do some of these things. Okay. Sure. Like it's also the things that like implant these powers into people's minds. If you've got a crown of like 10 of them, the aliens can do that. Okay. I guess that's what it can do. And just because Greg had mentioned it, I will note Greg mentioned the Margaret going into the studio is like one of the big one of the big long take sequences in the movie. The other one, which like I was like, this is amazing. This is blew my mind. I loved it. Is when Daniel, I have to keep checking the character names. Yep, Daniel is he got the phone call in the field like, don't go back to the house because they know you're there. I don't know you and I don't understand what's happening, but don't go back to the house. And of course he goes back to the house because he's got to find Jane. And he's crouched and he's hiding. And there's that whole long sequence where we follow him like running down and then moving around and getting in the car and then start trying to drive the car. And that's great. Like it's a like exhilarating sequence. And then it starts that car chase, and the car chase is really fun. He goes into the house, drives into the house. There is this is the sort of logistic thing that I feel like happens in this movie where it's like, if you are like, you can let it go. And in the moment I was like, that's weird, but I'm going to let it go. Cause it's like, he's hiding behind a very open fence that is just like that sort of two long, I don't know the name for it.
Right. How does no one hear him?
Rail.
The twigs cracking under his feet.
So it's a split rail, and there's this like army of people who are looking army, but there's like 30 guys, men in black, bad corporate evil guys. Could be the same guys who show up in ET. We don't know, but same idea of this, like the guys in suits, and they're all just like, we're all just going to look in one direction. We're not going to look anywhere else. We're not going to check to see if anybody's behind us or anyone's coming up behind. We're going to let this guy run without really trying to do anything quietly, like all the way down. And then it's like, he goes all the way back and then gets into this car, starts the car. No one seems to notice until he starts moving the car that it's happening. He gets stuck in between two trees, but that's still not enough for them to like corner him. It's like that. And then combined with when they get to the hotel and they're like, all right, we're going to raid the hotel. Should anyone go around back? Nope. Does anyone need to when they finally break in and then it's like, oh, one of the two people aren't here. Should we look for the other person? Nope. Like, she might have left out back. We don't know. Well, who cares? Well, we can't find the device. Where do you think the device is? Should you mind warp into the other person who you've already used multiple times for things? Nope. Like, it's fine. We could just deal with him. It's fine. All of it's fine, but they add up. There's a lot of just like, I just feel like usually Spielberg's tighter with these things. Usually it's like those little like jumps in logic and those little things are, again, you can hand wave it away and you're having a good time. And Spielberg's like moving forward. I will say part of thinking about this is like, the movie didn't fully sit well with Jasmine. And like after a day, she was like, it's sloppy. Like there's a lot of things like that where it's like, they just were sort of like, it's fine. Like they just kind of got an idea and they worked through it. It's fine. But it ended up being a little bit sloppy. So like that, I think that's the thing that like, I understand the critique of the most. And I do understand that there's people who might be bumping up against that and then also bump up against some of the bigger picture ideas we already were talking about that I'm on board with you too, of like, I want to believe, I want to believe in what he's, not necessarily the aliens, but the empathy and the connection and the fact that we could maybe be better people. So if you're already like, no, I can't buy that. I'm too drained of belief in people. And I'm also supposed to believe that no one is going to check the back window or no one's going to turn around while they're raiding the house. Like I can see how it adds up to just being like, I can't do it. I can't do this whole movie. It's dumb. They also don't check the train. Everyone's like, where did that guy go? The guy's following in the car. They're like, oh, they jumped on that train. Should we check the train? Nah. No, we'll find him later.
One of the lines, which I think I maybe subconsciously, maybe consciously, I don't know, cited in my Letterboxd review, I think it's the, oh my gosh, what's the Colin Firth character's name?
Scanlon.
Scanlon says this device works, but only if you wait. Maybe it's not him. Maybe it's Hugo Coleman Domingo. Somebody says this device works, but only if you have to give yourself over to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad that I don't remember who said it. I think it was Scanlon. He's explaining it how it works to somebody else.
I think he's explaining how, like, because they're like, isn't this dangerous? Because he kept like his heart rate goes up, and that like, but he can do it. He has to give himself over to it.
Yeah. And I feel like that is a running theme of the movie. Does it excuse all of the logic holes and logistics that you're talking about? No, but I do think that is part of it. As it's like, and this is what I was saying in my short take of like, the movie works best when you just kind of give into it and don't, and meet it at the like, just take a leap of faith kind of place that it asks you to go. And that it asks the characters to go. So I think that we are actively supposed to be like all the people, especially towards the end, where people are like, why am I doing this? Why am I helping you? Why am I like, what do you want me to do? What am I? Okay. But then they ask that, but then they don't actually think about the answer. Right. Yeah. They just do it. And I do think that is a big part of what this movie is going for, is that it's like, yeah, like, reaching this place where everyone is kind and empathetic to each other does require a lot of trust and faith that we just don't have right now. And wouldn't it be great if people could just be like, oh, you need help? Yes. Okay, I will help you.
I am 100% over explaining this to try to justify it. And I just acknowledge that off the top. But I will say that the unloved child among my podcasting empire is the Wheel of Time series I host. And Robert Jordan in that series, people have read it, has this like very silly device, which is called being a Taviran. And a Taviran, it's like everything warps around those people. It's like when Harry Potter drinks the good luck potion. It's just like how those people's lives work. Like everything is warped around them. And there's something here that I feel like the mystical devices are almost doing that in this mythology, which is everything PT just cited, which I'm just tracking in my head as he's saying all these very legitimate complaints. The person in question who gets away with something is holding the device, right? Like he was literally like, how is Josh O'Connor getting away with this? And then a little while later, how is Jane getting away with that? And it is always the person holding the device. So I think there may be, and Jen, then when you bring up at the end, they may not be holding the device, but they've now self-actualized to the degree that they just have this power. So I understand the powers of the devices to be 100% based in psionics. Is that my right Doctor Who word? Which is like, it's all about perception and the way in which that you can manipulate somebody's perception and the way they perceive things. So in Emily Blunt's character, Morgan Fairchild. Margaret Morgan Fairchild, I think, stars in soap operas. Margaret Fairchild is able to interact with people. It's because she can kind of read their perception through them and understand their worldview. And then the deep dive part is all about what do they say, what do they not, the animal superpower, all of these things are back to this idea of perception. And so I think if you kind of understand that they are trying to say that the power of these aliens, the technology they figured out that we haven't, is based in, the ability to kind of manipulate perception and so on. And I like that as a gangway to, and if you can do all that, then the only power there is in this world is empathy, because that's all you get. If you understand it all and you can manipulate it all, then all that's left to guide us is the greatest value of all, which is empathy. So there's a way in which all of those things I can find an explanation for, even if I'm out very far on thin ice trying to guess at it.
All right. So next question is, what is the deal with Hugo? Greg asked, what is the path Hugo took to these events? Hugo, as a reminder, is the character played by Coleman Domingo.
So I'll weigh in first here, because I think what I have seen across my two viewings, and I'm sure I'm just slow and you got this mostly on your one viewing, is that it took me a while to understand that Hugo is presented as like, he's very much a stand-in as a director, right? He's building a set. He's determining the course of events. And I think there's a way in which some of the critics of this film have said, like, well, he's underdeveloped. We don't know what his motivations are. We don't know any of this. But I actually think the film is pretty clear that Hugo was essentially radicalized by one of the aliens, that there was an alien captive being mistreated and tortured, in vivo 17, I believe. And so he, some number of years prior to the start of this film, freed in vivo 17, who I assume is the alien we meet at the very end, right? And that alien has been instrumental in constructing the whole plot, in feeding the information. One would assume acting as the arbitrator between the aliens out there and the human characters as a part of that. Now, again, PT coming back from Frozen Land, if all of the alien superpowers are based in the manipulation of perception and the messing with brainwaves to affect how we are, I think you could make a very thin case that aliens are warping all of this, that none of the plot we see is actually outside of the control of the aliens. And there's a line Scanlon delivers where he says, if you are doing this based on what he said, it is their plan, right? You are working for them. And I kind of dig that as a reading of this. And you can then get into the very good ethical concerns about like manipulating children to do your will, and the lack of consent these two children seem to have had when being enlisted in this cause. But I think it's best to read that like it's that partnership between In Vivo 17 and Hugo that leads to everything we see, that they were always working towards this end.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I was in Frozen Land audience, so I apologize if I'm going to step on something that Greg just said when I couldn't hear what he was saying. But I do think I would expand out, and tie both of the last two topics together. That both the sort of what does the device do exactly, and also what's Hugo's deal is both kind of bridging the like metaphor of all of this is about being a person who makes movies. But I would say Hugo's the assistant director and the alien is the director. And in a way, Colin Firth's character, Scanlan, Noah Scanlan, is also like he's directing things in his own way. Like he also, I don't know, second unit, maybe.
He's in Video Village for a large portion of the opening.
Correct. Yeah, he's watching from a distance, but calling some shots. But that idea of people being like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, what's my motivation? Like the characters are actually like behaving like actors. The MacGuffins are MacGuffins to the degree that it's just like whatever it needs to be now is what this thing is. And the idea of we can do all of this in the interest of making images that will connect with an audience and generate empathy, tapping to that classic Roger Ebert report that movies are empathy machines, that is kind of also what Spielberg is getting at here, that it is about he thinks aliens are real and he wants to show like the sort of accumulation of evidence that have happened in the almost 50 years since Close Encounters. Yes, he wants to tap into humans can be better than they are. And we don't need to let our divisions, et cetera, be open, be empathetic. Don't fall into these traps. Of course. Yes. But I do think there is also, as this being the sequel to the Fablemans in some way, this is also about just a person who wants to make movies. That person is in vivo 17. There is, I don't know, maybe Greg, when you were saying this, like there is imagery when they're starting to flash all of the data that's being shared. There's a little video clip. I think maybe it's shown twice. It's definitely shown once. That is Hugo with his head up against the side of container where one of the aliens are, and the aliens on the other side too. And once it sort of showed that, it was like, oh, the alien is able to, there's some way that the alien's able to communicate to Hugo in a way that's probably much slower than it can communicate to Daniel, who actually understands the language, but they find a way to communicate. And then, as you say, Hugo is sort of radicalized and sort of leads to being like, oh, I need to do this. And then through Hugo, he recruits the other dozen people or the other 11 people to make up the dozen who become this splinter group that are going to make this big disclosure happen.
It made me think a little bit too of Steven Spielberg production Men in Black, where you get the Tommy Lee Jones character who's like the kid who just kind of fell into all this. He was going on a blind date or on a date and accidentally wandered into an alien visitation. Man, that's one of those movies where the first one is so great and then the baggage undercuts it. But it's like, no, it's so great back. And kind of I'm really interested in the question of when Hugo and let in vivo escape, and then they discuss how that's the moment that that Scanlan and Hugo Wakefield, the names in this are kind of brilliant, that Wakefield separates, and they both kind of accuse each other in their interaction of that's the moment they became radicalized, and then eventually it is Hugo who recruits Josh O'Connor, which then is what leads to the leak. So like all of that is coming. I like your yes and PT. All of that's coming from the director in vivo and through the assistant director. I'm a little curious to know the timing of, did the children get imbued with their powers before he escaped, or is he escaped and is helping and is doing these visitations? Like, is it in vivo giving the powers to the children or not? I don't think the movie weighs in on either way. You can kind of construct it.
It could also be all the aliens have a shared consciousness, and so it knows what the other aliens did, even though it wasn't there, whether it was captured or whether it was just showed up later. We don't know.
And my last backbreaking copium, and then I swear I'll let Jen talk, is that I think the animals still look like crap. I thought this from the minute the first trailer hit that none of them work. But I do think the in-universe explanation is this is the best that aliens can do to represent woodland creatures that in the perception of others. So I think if you really want to bend over backwards to be generous to this movie despite its flaws, I think that's the thinnest case I can make.
I was going to say, I don't think it's that thin. I think that's actually I think that's right. And that includes the weird glowing Hansel and Gretel house, the Thomas Kincaid cabin, as I saw it referred to. That it was like, I didn't realize, because I didn't watch the later trailers. I didn't realize that was in one of the more recent trailers. People were like, what is that thing? It looks so fake. And it's supposed to, because it's both a memory and also it's an alien creation to like make them feel comfortable. So, because that's what happens. Sometimes a director needs to use CGI and it doesn't always look great. That's what happens with directors.
I like that we're running with this metaphor. I don't love the idea that it was the alien in control the whole time. I like the idea that, because there's one line you can point to that kind of like clarifies how Hugo got to this point, right? I think it's Scanlan says, like, I knew we never should have let him interact so closely with Vivo 17 or whatever. Like, it's because like they formed a relationship, I think is what he says, right? He makes some passing reference to somebody else about like, well, he got too close. And so I like the idea that all of this happened because Hugo became friends with an alien and then was empathetic and understood where he was coming from, and then created this whole resistance against what Vortex was doing. That's my headcanon, at least. At least if I do like the idea that like the alien's the director and then everything trickles down from there. But I feel like the movie's message is more powerful if it's a human like Hugo who's taking the initiative.
So you want it more that the in vivo is the like executive producer. And then Hugo is the director. I mean, I don't think it's really that what you're saying is that different, because I think, Hugo still needs to actively do a bunch of stuff. But I think, some of the things that people are like, well, I don't understand this part of it, which I think makes total sense once you're like, well, Hugo and the alien are communicating about all this. But like one of the things I saw is people being like, how does Hugo know? He doesn't know who Margaret is because he's surprised about her identity when she calls, yet he's already building her childhood house. So he knows what the house looks like because the set's already being built around him before Margaret reveals herself. But like the alien would know. So like in vivo told him, in vivo described like to him what it looks like. So like enough of that or whatever, or he used the device because the device can do whatever. It's fine. It all explains itself. It's okay. But yeah, I think the idea of Hugo and in vivo made the connection that everyone needs to make with each other and also with the aliens as a wider concept. And that's sort of their starting point. And if you have more questions about that, why don't you just enjoy the soulful acting of Coleman Domingo and enjoy him being in charge and enjoy him giving some good, let's go get him speeches that are wonderful.
He has one monologue towards the end where I'm just like,
give it.
Just give him an Oscar. Come on. Just like
it won't be for this, but he'll get an Oscar.
No, it won't. He will eventually. But you know what I mean? Like, oh man, like in that moment I was like, Coleman Domingo. That's why he's in this movie. Because up until then I'm like, did Coleman Domingo really need to be in this movie? He's not doing a ton other than sounding very reassuring over the phone, right? but then towards the end, it clicked into place. I'm like, oh, that's why you cast Coleman Domingo in this role, so he can deliver that monologue in that way. But yeah, to me, I'm being a stickler about this point, but like to me, the messaging of the movie is critical. Like for the messaging of the movie to hold, it is critical that all humans maintain agency the whole movie, because as opposed to being pawns of the aliens. Because I do think part of it is that we see this through the Daniel character. Like he's like, I saw this and I couldn't unthink it, and I had to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like because I was forever changed by this information, I had to act. Because I couldn't really see any other way to move forward with my life. Like I couldn't unsee it. like this idea that once you know something, you can't like you can't, unless you're just delusional and in denial about it, you can't unknow it. And I think that's very powerful. Less powerful if like it was the aliens all along.
And draw a straight line to the news anchor, right?
Yes.
Both of them. Exactly that. I almost interrupted a minute ago to try to make the case that In Vivo is the screenwriter, and Coleman Domingo's Hugo is the director, but it's not worth it for that. But I did just want to note that those we haven't talked enough about the warehouse and the house and all of that. That to me is the most fascinating thing Spielberg has come up with in a while. It is 100% based on the fact that he had that experience, right? That he was on set in The Fabelmans and walked into his childhood home and experienced all of this. The shot of Margaret sitting and putting her hands in the crayons and just looking around her bedroom and seeing all these things again. I think PT said it right. Like you know, the fact that Spielberg's production designer was able to do that from Spielberg's 8mm movies makes sense for The Fabelmans. Here, you can only wave it away as the aliens have read her mind and can like communicate that. I love thinking of In Vivo somewhere doing sketches of what the childhood bedroom should look like as a part of that. But like if you buy into all of that, I think it's really brilliant. And then it leads to two just absolute bangers, which is I love the shots. The horizon is very low because we know this is Spielberg and he won't put it in the middle of the screen.
It's interesting.
But the camera shoots up at Emily Blunt and Josh O'Connor as they sit together holding hands. And the two of them transform in that shot to be so childlike. And it's the fear in the performances. It's them being thrown back. Emily Blunt doing a little singing, a little Disney. Universal shelled out for those rights. Or maybe that's public domain at this point. Is Cinderella public domain? It might be.
All right, first of all, it's Snow White.
Oh. Sorry. Oh. Sorry, Rachel Ziegler just called in. Yep. Okay, got it.
Wow.
Good, fair criticism, fair point, and worth correcting. But like that is all brilliant. And then you get this ridiculous slapstick scene of them sneaking out of the invisible house, which like is just Spielberg dialing up the goofiness and totally nailing it. Like, you know, knowing it was coming on my second viewing, I just kind of listened to it percolate around the audience when they realized what was happening. And that was something cool we hadn't really ever seen before. And then the slapstick of the guys crashing through the front window. And especially then when the guys get picked up and carried by the invisible, it's brilliant and it totally works effects wise. And it's hilarious and strange. And I loved every minute of it.
There was a part of me that was like, are we going to get like a 10-minute invisible car chase? And I get that we didn't, and the movie's already almost 2.5 hours. But I wouldn't have been upset if there's like a Blu-ray extra. That's the, here's the car chase we filmed, but we didn't include it for pacing. I gladly watch it. That part was fun. I agree.
So just to clarify about the Snow White reference, I'm really sorry. I can't. Let's go.
Do we need to go back to the agency one yet?
No. The song is Someday My Prince Will Come, which is from the Disney film Snow White. But it's also her being like asleep, meaning she didn't know that she had these powers, or she couldn't remember the core memory of being visited by the alien. Is like a reference to like I think the reference to Snow White is there because at the end of Snow White it's that she gets poisoned by the apple. Maybe that the poison apple is humanity, I don't know. And then she falls asleep and then she wakes up. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's just a metaphor for her being, for disclosure, right? Like she doesn't know anything and then she knows everything.
Yeah. Jen, are you sure the poison apple isn't the apple from the tree of knowledge, which poisons humanity and then leads to the religion, which will not be replaced by aliens, despite Jane's concern that if we let people know about aliens, they won't believe in God anymore, until her nun friend is like, no, it's okay. They can do both.
PT, but are you forgetting that the poisoned apple is actually the friends we made along the way?
Wow.
Or did you forget that hi ho, it's off to work we go?
Well, that's where it falls apart, because it's like, who are the 7 dwarves in the situation? Like, I think we need to end it there. Like, it doesn't hold up after that. Because I tried to count. I'm like, are all the other characters set? Like, or do we add up to 7 if we and we can't?
I hope when she stands and like surveys the crowd of the workers, I hope there's 7 of them.
There's 7 of them.
And then
that would be great.
You can write a long take post about how they map on. Like, in this one moment, this one guy seemed a little dopey. We'll go with that. Like,
I feel like the real likely chance is either one of Spielberg's sisters or one of his daughters used to sing that song before going to bed. And then he was like, I'm putting that in the movie. And now we are English majoring all over it and being like, well, wait a minute. How do we dig deep?
It's also, sorry, this is the last thing I'll say about this, then we can move on. It's come on, there's a chance for a Disney Easter egg in here. Like,
Let's do it.
You gotta let me run with it. At the beginning of Snow White, the huntsman can't kill her because she's like too pure and too nice. Right. And that's essentially what happens to Margaret throughout this movie, right? Like, no one hurts her or tries to hurt her. They just step aside because they're like, you are such pure light and goodness and empathy that, like, we can't bring ourselves to strike you down. So that checks out. 7 Dwarves doesn't check out, but
I was going to support you with the cabin in the woods as well, but
they
so specifically hang it as Hansel and Gretel, which one of the first Letterboxd reviews, I looked at this, they were like, Hansel and Gretel in 2026, how we doing, team? And I was so confused about, like, is there just a community of people waiting for Hansel and Gretel content out there? But I mean,
between this and Obsession, they're getting it. Like, they're like,
and then like magic, and they're not fed candy, but they're given great gifts. Like, I don't know, there's something to it, but it is much better for me. Well, and I really tried hard to compose a Letterboxd review. You know, the old Christian poem about, but Lord, why, when in the hard parts of my life were there only one set of footprints? Mm-hmm. I wanted to write something about how, like, but why, Lord, were your feet little tiny alien feet? That is when I carried you. I couldn't make it work. I tried like 4 drafts.
Well, there's the shot of all the animal footprints. Yeah. Alongside Margaret, right?
Mm-hmm. Last Jedi team, how we doing? It's back. We haven't even talked about how there's force timing in this movie, and oops, a little Rise of Skywalker. We have a dyad. Like, somebody watched his sequel trilogy, and we respect you for it, Uncle Steven.
Oh. Since we're already over English majoring this, I think it's time to go to rhetorical situation. So all of our regular co-hosts are writing professors, which means we like to have this section of the episode dedicated to making connections to our experience as scholars and teachers. We've already been reading way too much into this movie as a result of that experience, I would say. And in the teaching of writing, the rhetorical situation refers to any contextual factors that influence composing and interpretation. So PT dipped us into this discussion a little bit, but there's a lot of not just existential questions, but questions about theology and religion and civilization and the role of all those things in human civilization. So I don't know what question to start us off with that, but what do we think about that? And we haven't really talked about the Jane character too much, so I think this is the time to kind of bring her in too.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting wrinkle. I think it's smart. I see why it's here in terms of thinking about, like, the impact, like, of how people will respond, that there's obviously, because of the government's trying to stop. Again, it feels very important that it isn't the government. It is, what is it? Wardex? What's the name of their?
Yep.
Wardex. This non-governmental agency, you know, it basically feels like it's got, you know, a real kind of SpaceX Palantir vibe, which I think maybe has already been mentioned, that, you know, it's sort of, it's doing all this work, but also exists on its own, doesn't really report to the government, doesn't share everything with the president anymore. Thanks, Dick Nixon. That element of society that we have created is obviously crucial to the story, that there is also the religions of the world element that like, you know, there is, I can see the possibility of like, oh, if there are beings that can come from another planet, are they going to cause disruption with the idea of thinking about a supreme being? It just feels, this part didn't really work for me. Like it made sense to be there, but then like the fact that it's like, I want to show you this video. I can't just tell you what's gonna be. I'm gonna show it to you. What are these? Is this a human? No. Is this a person? No. It's like, this is an alien. Well, you can't tell anybody because they're gonna be mad at God. And it's like, what? Like that feels like a weird immediate reaction, even for a secret former nun. That that was interesting. But it just felt overly complicated. And I was like, was there not a smoother way of bringing up some of these questions, some of these ideas? So I liked that it was here. I didn't really think it was executed very well, although I did like was Elizabeth Marvel as Sister Mora. I thought she did a really good job as the nun,
lowering her glasses.
Yes.
For all I've done to defend this movie, I think this is the part that I have the most fitting in. So I completely agree with you. Like, if this is 2 hours, 20 minutes, and you got to get rid of 20 minutes, this wouldn't get you that much time. But this is what I would trim out. And I find it really interesting that they do want to separate these issues from the other two characters. Because honestly, it seems to me the way you solve this problem is you collapse the Josh O'Connor character and the Eve Hewson character into one character. And it's like, oh, I mean, did we just see this movie where he struggles with his faith? We did. And maybe that's the problem is you couldn't do that. But, I do love that her name is Blankenship, as I already mentioned. And there's just a way in which the name is like, yep, she's blank. She doesn't know what to think about this. And we need to fill it in and so on. And I do think you're right that if it has to be here, we have to like add some depth to it, because it's like, I'm struggling. And I think it's even weirder than you just alluded to. She's like, if there's aliens, people will assume they are God. And it's like, wait, what? Like that's a leap to me. And, I try to filter out my own bias, which, I'm not as faithful as I once was, but I've always thought that my belief in God and Jesus did not mean that there couldn't also be aliens. Like, I just don't see those two things challenging each other. And in my experience of Christianity, that's what the majority of people seem to believe, right? And then I really, really, you told us to over English major it. I really, really bumped on the resolution of this, which is her saying, but God told us in the Bible that we were the superior beings. And then Elizabeth Marvel being like, on earth. I was like, that's a translator thing. Like, that has nothing to do with God. That is like,
did you get that in the original Aramaic? Like, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly. I immediately started thinking of the language, and then instead of having the actual knowledge, I went to, but in Latin, Jehovah starts with an I, which is where I go thinking about said issues. So I do think it's very interesting to think about how the faith communities would react to this. But it's almost better not to include it, because by painting in such a broad brush of like, here's how one person of faith understands it. If we know anything about religion on this planet, it's that every person is different.
It was also interesting, and maybe this is because I crammed so many Spielberg movies in the last few weeks, and one of them was finally rewatching Schindler's List and then watching some of his interviews from around that time, that it's like, he gets so invested into like, and I refound my faith in like the Judaism that I grew up with. I came back to it. It's so important, et cetera, et cetera. And then in this movie, it's just like, we need to worry about people's faith. Let's get Catholics. We'll get some nuns. And it's like, okay, Steven, like, okay, like I get it. Maybe just the visual of it, you can immediately be like, got it, nuns. Or he saw one battle after another and was like, oh, give me one of those. I want a scene like that. I want a hideout scene with nuns. Good.
Oh, it should have been the monastery of the industrious beaver.
Beaver? Some beavers in there.
There's an adjective, but I don't remember what it was. Don't Google it. Stop. You're on your work computers. Don't do it.
I'm putting the title of the film first.
Sisters of the Brave Beaver.
Okay,
Brave
there we
Beaver.
go.
Yeah.
Incredible. Great movie.
Jen, do you want to defend this piece of the movie? Do you think it belongs here, or would you trim it out too?
I was fine. I was fine with it because, I mean, yeah, should there either have been more or none of it? Yeah, sure, probably. But I do think that if we're looking at the kind of overall question of, are people able to expand their thinking and adjust their worldview in the face of new information about the world? I think we all know that there's lots of people in the world that have had a hard time with that.
Yeah.
And so I think seeing somebody somewhere struggle with the idea of but everything I believed already is going to be challenged or complicated in some way by this new information and this new knowledge about the existence of other life, right? So then the question is, I feel like in sort of staging these conversations between these characters, it's sort of posing the question of like, if that happened to you, would you be able to adjust, or would you just kind of double down on what you already believed and shut out all of the new information, right? Is posing and answering that question more the prerogative of the movie people thought we were going to get and not this movie? Yeah. Right? Because like, if we're just dealing with the fallout of everyone finding out that aliens exist, then I think those kinds of scenes where people are arguing with each other and wrestling with the philosophical and existential questions does make a lot more sense. But I do think it does. I did see it as kind of playing a role in the themes of the movie still.
Well, and I also want to toss in a little bit of an underplayed moment then in the warehouse, where one of the people who's been on Hugo's team reacts to the arrival of Margaret by crossing herself and essentially starting to pray and bless her. And Margaret is having a little bit of a breakdown at that moment, and it really just says directly, like, I'm not going to be anybody's religion. I'm not going to be anybody's Messiah. And I agree with you that's like, oh, but that's a really interesting movie too, right? Like I'm stealing this joke from Joanna Robinson on House of R. Like, can't wait to see Disclosure Night, the sequel, right? like what comes next? Because I think there's a lot there. But I would also argue that there is power in leaving that to us. And, I am totally here when people say they want their movies to answer everything. But a long time ago, I worked a bookstore event with the author, Reef Larson, and he and I talked for a moment about the power of indeterminacy. And it's always really stuck with me that we forget that has power in our art, that when you leave something underdefined or undefined, we then get to participate and we get to interpret and we get to, engage with it in a very different way than just, here's everything you need to know about this. And I really, this movie, and again, the guy who guffawed at the end, and to be honest, I had a great time with my son. Henry immediately was like, what? That's where they're leaving it? And it's like, yeah, but now sit in that. And, we had a great car ride home, down Route 1 past all the marvels that Route 1 in Massachusetts has to offer, where I walked him through, see, son, the Hilltop Steakhouse is like the religion of our, we talked it out.
And we come to worship here at Kowloon.
He's actually afraid of the Kelly's roast beef sign only at night because it looks much scarier than during the day. The logo is not good work.
He knows there's better beefs. That's the problem. He knows there's like, oh my God.
We have 100% lost the strand here. But I will say, it led to such a meaningful conversation. And it's the kind of conversation we have the privilege of having all Oscar season. And I thought it was present here in blockbuster season in a way that I don't see as much. And I was really glad for it. And he came around. I mean, he wanted to go see it again, so he can't be too mad.
Yeah.
Then you presented him with, you're like, son, you're finally old enough to watch all the complete series of The Sopranos. And you handed it to him.
The other thing I'll add is that you could definitely see, or I should make it an I statement. I can definitely see that the Jane nun religion storyline was a means to an end, so that the nun over the phone could say it wasn't, your faith in God that you lost. It was your faith in humanity. Because that is what the movie is about.
Yes.
That we lost our faith in humanity. We should restore our faith in humanity. So like I get it that was that alone could be the reason all of this is in here.
Yeah.
I was going to say, when you mentioned that moment when someone, the woman starts blessing herself and sort of like praying, and she's like, no, I'm not the Messiah. When she's like, why do you have my house? And I'm not a Messiah, which was very fun. I was like, I wonder if that was the only time they mentioned religion. Like, would that have been like almost as effective as all these other things? I do think bringing it up makes sense. But I do also, that was a great line. And I thought everything with the Elizabeth Marvel made sense. I think really the scene I wish wasn't there was Jane's immediate reaction about like, you can't show this to anybody because they'll either replace God or they'll turn on God or they'll be like real upset about it. And it's like, it just felt like such a unnatural reaction. It didn't seem in line with the person that we had spent time with already. And seemed like, as you were saying, Jen, sort of like immediately a means to an end about just like, actually, I'm here to talk about this issue. I forgot that. I forgot to bring it up earlier, but
that's a means to an end for the action plot as well, because, and I actually really love this moment, right after they have that conversation, she doesn't react the way that Daniel thinks she's going to. He is like, well, I'm going to go get out there to get better reception. And he looks over and he just like quietly takes the backpack with him.
That was fun. That was a good moment.
And so I do feel like and there's another version of the script where Jane just becomes a villain too. Not full on villain, but like becomes so much a pawn of Scanlan because his like use of the device is so successful that she is not able to fight, and she just ends up trying to hurt. You know what I mean? It's like more of a horror movie thing where like the scene in the car isn't her trying to resist using the knife on Daniel, but that she actually does try to do it. You know what I mean? Like there's another version of this movie where that's why you do that, because then it's like, oh, like you couldn't trust her anymore or something like that.
And just in the mix of that, I would add the further complication. There is something P.T. invoked the Milton of it all, or I think it might be in the Bible too, this Adam and Eve story. And there is something very much about that, right? Adam turns his back and Eve is approached by the snake. We didn't know there was a threat in our nice Edenic farmhouse that's kind of falling apart. But she gets tempted and she gets given the true knowledge and told what to do. And there's this nice thing. But what I really loved in that is because it does feel, the first time I watched it especially, is that like, as she's it feels like the faith is becoming how she gets seduced to become the villain, like you just said. But it's actually the crucifix that saves her, right? That she grips the crucifix and it's literally clinging to her faith that awakens her from the spell of the demon and the so on. And even later they're very clear. I mean, it's kind of a stigmata-y thing too, right? And they're very clear later that it's not just, I mean, my son was really cringy. I think he thought she was going to put the knife just through her hand to like break the spell, to just like slam. And she just digs the tip into that. And again, it's like, but that comes from the crucifix. And so I liked that it wasn't like a kind of simpler message of, yep, religion's over now. Get ready, guys. Science wins. It was much more about what are the truths you cling to and what helps you remember yourself. And I think that's all in the mix. I also don't think we have to do thesis, please, because Jen just totally said it, which I think is right, that this film's thesis is just reminding us, remember your faith in humanity.
That combined, it's that one, and I think the co-thesis is what Coleman Domingo says, which is the empathy as the evolutionary advantage of like that's how they got to the point where they could reach us, and they're here to teach us that we need to up the empathy in order to survive, because we're in the background, we're on the brink of World War III, and also maybe in reality.
And then again, totally fair when people are like, this is just outdated boomer fantasy, naivete, whatever you want to say. But at the same time, you could do worse for a message in 2026 than, hey, maybe increase the empathy a little. Maybe actually it isn't a weakness, right? I mean, I know the manosphere preaches against empathy, and certainly members of the current administration believe that empathy is like the greatest flaw in humanity. So I like that Spielberg's got this one, maybe one more after this, maybe a couple more after this, but in one of these late stage films, he's like, I just want to remind you, there's a different path. You can choose to believe something else. And all these themes of religion are about that choice of what you choose to cling to.
Greg, you're forgetting our first trillionaire as well. Also says empathy is our biggest, humanity's biggest flaw. And I want to note that, like,
he just bought this podcast too. Damn. All right. Wow. So, okay. Hey, empathy sucks. Let's do it.
Yeah. Well,
wasn't it a season of Only Murders in the Building?
Yes. I will just note, like, I am the most critical during this episode of the movie, but I do ultimately, like, that's what I took out of the theater was like, oh, I love that. And like everything about like believing in people and the need for empathy, along with, you know, I don't think it's as at the level of thesis, but I think it is a sub point. I was like, oh, this is a movie of like being pro-immigrant, about like, it's good when people come here and they have, or beings come here and they have different things and they have new stuff to add to it. And we need to be open to them because where they're able to like help us grow and advance and evolve. And I think all of that is right. And all that's good message. And maybe that's cringe and maybe that's corny. And maybe it's like, feels like, are people going to buy that? I don't know. But whatever, who cares? We're going to have one of our master craftsmen of film remind us of all of that, even if there's sloppiness around some of the execution. It's okay. Like, you know, I'm still ultimately like in favor of this movie. There's things I wish had been cleaned up a little bit in terms of the planning of some of the story beats and execution of things. But, you know, whatever. It's still good.
And just to reinforce that point, it's no accident, obviously, in that context, that the aliens so often look like children, because I think it is specifically invoking the footage we see and that gets suppressed where children are being taken and, you know, often tortured. So
also worth noting that, like, the big our heroes, our two protagonists, were also children who were taken and imbued against their will with these special powers, and then had their mind erased so they didn't remember it. So when the time came when they were adults, they could do stuff. A little complicated. I don't think that's
it's a little messy.
I don't think that's not like, I wouldn't put that as one of the problems. I think that's one of the like interesting wrinkles, as opposed to like they didn't think that through. But that is an interesting parallel about like, what are we doing? What are we doing, folks, to children?
And is that how you both interpret the fact that the alien at the end is so much bigger? Is this just an adult version? I mean, he's got like a nice grandpa blanket on his lap, which I respect, but it was a little strange. And I've heard a lot of critics bump on this.
Yeah, my interpretation of it was that he was just very elderly now because so many years had passed. Like he was like that the aliens are sort of like goldfish and they just keep growing. And
I love it.
And that like in the footage that's from 80 years ago or however many years they say this is the time frame for how long this has been happening, that he's one of the small childlike size, and that over the course of 70 or 80 years he has grown continuously.
Or I'll yes and you with their gravity is stronger than ours. So in the lesser gravity, they can keep growing and expanding, kind of like humans grow a little when we go to space.
Sure.
I just thought aliens could be different sizes.
That works too. Well, so I do want to talk about the presentation of the alien at the last scene, because to me, this film works the best as an allegory and not actually about like whether or not aliens exist. And which I started listening to the Big Picture episode, but I don't think I got very far. But they were like, so really just this movie's about guys, they're aliens. They're real. And that's that they kept talking about how they were surprised at how literal the movie is. And I was like, that's just the opposite of kind of how I experienced it. And because to me, during the the actual disclosure, all the videos and all the footage, the news anchor reacting to what they're seeing in real time, all of that stuff to me could stand in for so many things, like so many dark things in American history, or just the history of the world, of bad things that we have done to each other and have covered up and suppressed. And considering it's Steven Spielberg and one of his best movies is Schindler's List, to me the alien at the end coming out really felt coded like a Holocaust survivor. And I know that's probably not necessarily, that was not intentional, but that is just how that was just how I was reacting to what I was seeing, where I was like, and sort of like the Margaret character when because she won't look at Coleman Domingo at first, right? She says like, I'm not ready. You're the one who knows everything and I'm not ready to know everything just yet. And she feels like the heavy weight of knowing everything, right? And so I feel like that was sort of the experience I had in the last act of the movie, where they're just showing all of this stuff, and the imagery is really conjuring, like those could easily be humans and not aliens in those videos, right? And you can map it onto any number of atrocities that have been committed in the world's history. And by the end, and this might be explained why I was so emotionally overcome, by the end I was just like, it's too much. How could I possibly know all of this and do anything about it? And it was both cathartic and really paralyzing at the same time. Like sort of like it was forcing me to confront how awful the world is and how I do nothing about it, basically. And everything has been disclosed, and yet I move on with my life as if it were normal. And it really just hit me. It was bad.
You put your face back in your screen and carry on. Yeah, I mean, I think that is an excellent read, Jen, which did not resonate with me, but I think is entirely true. I will say the evidence I would provide for it too is if there's a movie, the last act plays like that in recent memory, it's the one you two skipped last fall with Russell Crowe, which is Nuremberg, right? Which is the climactic scene at the end of Nuremberg is them finally pulling out the film strips and showing the jury the actual footage from the Holocaust camps and that. And I think you're absolutely right that Spielberg is, in the fantasy, but also very much in reality. And I think you're right how often we're in an environment where we're seeing horrific things. Why should we care more? Why should we give more empathy to these aliens than we do humans who have suffered the exact same things or are currently suffering the exact same things? It's a little complicated in the World War III is breaking out bit of it in that context, but I absolutely think you're right. And to me, that reinforces another thing I want to yell at the internet about, where everybody's like, oh, this disclosure is so dumb. Like, they would never believe that video. Everybody would question it. This is so dumb. Nobody would change. The indeterminacy is beautiful. Write your own next thing. They worked really hard to get the alien in the studio. The alien is going to go live on camera, right? Like, there's no way that that's not a piece of this full disclosure, in my mind, at least. Again, write your own ending. And I think that is really beautiful in the context you just said, which is, what has Steven Spielberg done except through the Show Off Foundation, trying to get these stories and this evidence committed while we still had time and try to get those personal records. I know he's done a huge amount of work in that regard, and I think it's really great. So wonderful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, sorry to bring the mood down.
No, it's good. I think it is a good point. I do think there's that that allegorical weight to it, and by extension, the sort of just like, in a way, it's the possibility of seeing one of the critiques that people have had about the movie, which is sort of like, this isn't like, we've already had this, it didn't change anything, that the movie is saying like, yeah, you should have though, like maybe you should have tried to do something different, without necessarily being like, and here's what you personally, Jen Bankert, should have done. You needed to travel to this place and start fighting in this battle in order to improve the situation or whatever. But that like, being aware and being sort of like, oh yeah, like this stuff is around is good. It's a good reminder. And again, we've said what the sort of two big thesis statements are about believing in people, but also having empathy. I don't think necessarily means acting as if there haven't been terrible things that have been done and like justice needing to be dealt with for that in order to sort of, it's not just like, okay, everyone, let's just reset and move on, but like that we need to do something about this. Since we're in sort of this area maybe of thinking about real world things, it does match up. Roswell was 1947. I get it. We are recording on a Monday over this past weekend. It was somebody's birthday. I will say it doesn't match up now, but as of when I saw the movie on Friday, the idea of this 79 years of the terror of the lies for the last 79 years did line up pretty well with the current occupant of the White House being 79 years old. And him being someone who is terrorizing the country and has consistently just like lived a bunch of lies and led to a bunch of terrible things happening around the world, whether directly or indirectly. That it's like, there's like individual people who have been doing this who maybe need to be held consequential and then or held responsible, I should say, and dealt with consequences in, judicially. And also collectively, we need to do some reassessments on like what we are doing individually and as, humanity.
Right. And in part, what facilitates that or enables is probably the right word, is that so many people are like, oh, I don't pay attention to the news. It's just going to make me sad.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so they are actively, and I'm included in that sometimes, like they are actively saying, I do not want to know. I do not want to know what bad things are happening in the world because then I am complicit in them in some way. So yeah, I don't know.
I want to respond to your apology for making things darker and say first, how dare you? No, but to say that I really again like seeing that because at this point there's like only 2 or 3 Spielberg films we haven't worked into our coverage of this, so I'm just on cloud 9. But I do think the film is in that way saying, how dare you not care? But the beautiful thing is that you still have the capacity to do so.
Right.
And
it's not too late.
I think that means it is ultimately a hopeful film, and the phrasing of the thesis police question, which we've now covered without covering, is like Spielberg said he just had to tell this story. This is the one he wanted to bubble up with, and I really think he just wanted to remind us that we are not living up to the greatness of being, human, but we could, and to again make that the message you share, far superior than a pledge to the human race, but yet absolutely a pledge of allegiance to the human race.
And what's the next logical step to disclosure but acknowledgement, right? And so much of this movie is about just seeing people and acknowledge that's what Margaret's superpower is, right? She sees someone, like she actually says something, like her dialogue at some point explicitly says this, where she says, I can see people and everything about them, and like
all of them.
Yeah. And all like, and so just, and just the idea that they feel seen is so powerful. Right. And so learning about something through a disclosure should lead to acknowledging the people involved in the disclosure. Right. Whether that be their pain, their suffering, whatever the case may be. Right. So, yeah. Steven Spielberg, man.
I mean, PT, I plagiarize you all the time. You said any director would kill for the run of Bridge of Spies, West Side Story, Fabelmans. I think you got to add this in. And I totally hear the critics saying, most critics have said like, it's not Jaws and Raiders, but also nothing can be Jaws and Raiders. So they at least acknowledge, right? It's very much Paul McCartney's new documentary where he's like, well, I had to form a new band, but I was in the Beatles. And you're like, yeah, I get it, Paul. Like it's a tough act to follow. And so I do think this doesn't compare to that top tier Spielberg, but that's also okay.
Yeah. Being somewhere in the middle of Steven Spielberg is not shabby at all.
Yeah.
I don't know how we pivot to Oscars watch, but we have to, because I do think this is maybe the first. This is the surest I've been that something will be in the Oscars conversation about this movie, right?
More than Project Hail Mary.
Well,
okay. Well, yeah,
we'll talk. Well, I guess we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Oscars watch. Picturing in vivo with a cane and a top hat.
I assume you can hear the music, Jen. We cannot.
Yeah, we can't.
Wait, what? Wait, why not?
I assume it's the.
So you didn't hear any of that?
I mean, I heard you talking. I didn't hear any music.
Right, but you didn't hear the music. Oh, my joke
wanted
about
to hear
Vivo was
Vivo with the top hat and cane sounds great. Like I know the music. I can picture it.
Okay.
But I am not hearing it.
All right, so I mean, I'll open it up. I guess I don't want to color the conversation, but Emily Blunt, I think, is our biggest prospect here.
I mean, above the line, yes, I think that is true. I think below the line, I would assume John Williams is the biggest prospect because the Academy loves nominating him. Score is
great.
Worst solid. But yeah, I would say it's great. And like usually John Williams doesn't have to do that much to get a nomination. So and especially the idea of like it's the last one, it's the last movie. He already got that nomination for The Fabelmans, but they'll do it again because he came back. I also think to Greg's point earlier, we have a previous Academy Award winner, Paul Tazewell. Is that how you pronounce it? Tazewell or Tazewell?
Tazewell, I think.
Tazewell. Did costume design for this, and the costumes are really good. They're not like, they're not period and they're not, real sci-fi, super sci-fi, but like, I could see something, some of these below the line ones and, visual effects, some production design, perhaps of the different sort of offices and stuff could pick some things up. But for sure, the Emily Blunt actress campaign is going to be off and running.
I co-sign all of that. I mean, it's so early. It's really hard to know. I don't want to just echo what we said as sinners because we're like, it's never going to happen. It's too early, kids. And then it set a record. But I do think that it needs to be a hit to keep this in people's minds. Somebody already said this on a podcast I listened to. Like the Golden Globe nomination is a lock for Emily Blunt. Like they're there. They're
SAG. I would say and SAG too.
Yeah, but if this is going to really continue on, and part of where my head is at on this issue is that for Obsession there was really like no chance, but now that it has lingered and stayed so long. And I think Weapons was essentially this for Amy Madigan. It's like the conversation changes when you realize how powerful this is. So I think I am for it. As I said, I think Emily Blunt did incredible work here. But I think this movie is going to need to not have this 77% drop that both Mando and Grogu and Masters of the Universe have done already, and needs to... Spielberg movies are reliable. He is a brand. I mean, my theater it had some teenagers in it. It clearly had like people my age with their parents out having a fine time at the movie. So I think there's a chance this goes on and does really good business. The opening was solid. So it's good prospects, but it's just so early and we have like, how many things have we not heard of? Jen, you were just saying your Cannes movie pick has 2 actress candidates in it. Sounds sentimental value-y. So it's a long season yet. Anya Taylor-Joy will play a fetus in Dune 3, probably. No, I think they're skipping that
birthed.
part. Yeah, yeah.
But...
So there's a lot, but I would love it. And for John Williams at this point, the nomination just happens. I don't think they'd give it a win. I think he's considered lauded enough. If it really is a runaway hit, maybe Spielberg could sneak in to director. Again, I don't think he'd win, but when
was the last time he was nominated?
Great to have him in a room.
Fabelmans,
yeah.
Fabelmans, okay.
Kep, don't press your suit.
Although I was going to say, even though I don't know if that would be the part of this movie I would nominate, I do think that like there's 10 slots in screenplay. And so potential original screenplay. Spielberg would also be nominated there. If they don't think they can get him into director. They could at least get another nomination in screenplay. And then, again, if things are potentially soft, it could be in one of those like 9th or 10th best picture slots. Maybe. I expressed this in over text with you all. I do think because of the mixed reaction that is, online is online, but that also was reflected sort of in the theater. And I did look, it does have a B cinema score, which is not like, people aren't like, woohoo. All flawed metrics, of course, but I do wonder if the word of mouth on this is going to lead to it being less of a sustained runaway hit in the mold that Greg is talking about. So I would think it's probably going to have a relatively stripped down, focused Oscar campaign around the few things that it feels like, okay, we can definitely do this, which again, I would think Emily Blunt and John Williams would be the sort of two main ones or most prominent ones, and then seeing what it can do based on other things that come out around other technical categories.
Does Emily Blunt go actress or supporting?
Who else is running, Jen?
Yeah.
It should be lead. Like, I mean, let's be honest. This is a lead performance. Yeah. But, but
you could sneak it. Happens. You could sneak it.
Yeah. This is, look at the trailers. Josh O'Connor is the main character. Like, what are you talking about? And then, she doesn't come into the movie for a little while. So you can say that. Please ignore how much she runs the final third of the movie. But, yeah, I mean, I think they could squeeze her into supporting if they feel they have to. I think it's going to be very dependent upon like which category has the strongest.
Yeah. Sound, cinematography.
Sure. Maybe.
I mean,
Janusz?
Y'all forgot about Janusz. We were talking about the camera and such. So
the shot where it goes over the laptop.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I was just like, what is this? This is amazing.
That all being said, and I stand by my Janusz pick for the plot, even though Jen said that was the most film bro thing I've ever done.
That was meant half complimentary, half not.
Look, it could be worse. She could have said that it was fraudulent and pandering to pick. I'm sorry. Let me double check my notes here. The Shoah Foundation.
When I was editing that episode, I was like, "Oh, I was really mean to you."
Steven Spielberg's other testament to the power of visual.
It's because you kept taking movies that were on my list. That's why.
Well, I mean, you should win. You got John Williams, but then you had to sit and let everyone else pick all these movies you wanted.
Yeah,
that was tough. I was like, oh, and I felt so stupid because I was like, why didn't I think about this strategy? I just put like, oh, well, if my first choice would be this, my second choice would be this. I didn't think about, well, if my first choice is this and I get it, then what happens? And then what's left? Like I didn't.
Jen, if I had gotten that pick, I would have taken John Williams. So you did. I think you did the right thing. We all would have. So there's no. It just that's just is what it is. You take the win. You got to take the losses that come with it.
Yeah.
And some of us have Jaws and ET and feel great about it.
Yeah.
Greg clearly won that draft. If you go back and look, it's pretty obvious. I'm sorry.
I'm sitting pretty.
I mean, Back to the Future was a big pull for him. I remember that.
That's
which I basically gave up.
Produced by category by far.
Plus
Raiders, plus Jurassic Park and sci-fi. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
sure.
It's not a good look for the rest of us.
I mean, some of us also have Catch Me If You Can.
Oh, that was that was my number one.
Was it your historical Saving Private Ryan?
Oh, must be. Just bought my ticket to go see that in 35 millimeter in 2 weeks. So
yeah, there were a couple key films that I passed up because I knew someone else would care about them more, and that if I really wanted to be mean and win, then I could have taken them, but I didn't.
Jen, what was your sci-fi?
I believed in empathy during that draft.
Jen's sci-fi is Minority Report.
Yeah,
would you take Disclosure Day over Minority Report?
Oh, no.
And I can't take it over Jurassic Park.
And I wouldn't take it over.
It's solid, but it's not in that tier.
And Anthony had Close Encounters. I mean, come on. Well, it's hard. That's the thing. Again, this is going to be in the lower half, but like the upper lower half of Spielberg's list.
But still better than a lot of stuff.
But yeah, I like, how many other filmmakers are never going to have a movie that does as much good stuff in it as this does? Like a bunch.
I mean, like I said, my son and I watched Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and I was like, this is by far the worst Indiana Jones movie, and yet I would watch this over the vast majority of what I watch in the theater because it's still fun.
I would say all of this should be cut because it's just spoiling another episode that we should just direct people to listen to instead.
That's true.
But I would say I haven't rewatched it. I will probably dip into Crystal Skull again sometime soon. I do feel like the kept screenplay for this reminds me a lot of that, where it was like, we got all these ideas. We got to put these ideas in. We're working on it. You know what? We just got to start filming, dude. Can you just wrap this up? And he's like, okay, this is the version I have now. It's like, great, we're filming. And, there's just questions that haven't really been figured out or answered correctly, but we'll do it. We'll do it on the moment. And then they did what the best they could.
Is there a way to take the black bag?
That's exactly what I was going to bring up. It's like, how is this the black bag guy? Because that script was so good. Like, I feel like in every way.
Maybe Steven Spielberg needed to give Steven Soderbergh final say over when the screenplay was ready. Be like, will you just let me know when Kep's finished with the screenplay? And Soderbergh would say, okay. Like that may be the difference.
Presence, you might also put in this category.
Yeah, Presence, I think was pretty.
It needed a little more baking.
Yeah, it was undercooked. I didn't like Presence that much at all.
Yeah.
Okay, cut all this, Jen. This is frivolous, and we're like 3 hours in.
Well, I know that this ends Steven Spielberg season for us for now.
What?
We'll see.
Oh, come on! I had 4 more episodes.
I was going to say, wait a minute. Have you looked to see what's coming out the next few weeks? Like, I think we could be deep in Spielberg season as long as we want.
Where's our Toy Story prep?
Oh, that's true. Okay.
Yeah.
There's still 3 weeks after that.
I have kids. I can totally rewatch all those movies.
You don't.
Although I did try to do that the other day, and they were like, "We don't want to watch this." And I was like, "No."
Wow.
I was going to say you don't have time, but depending on the mood of your children, maybe you can get them all in by Thursday. So,
yeah. They liked Hoppers though.
Huh?
They really did. They were like, and I watched it with them at home, and then they watched it again at camp. It was the last day of camp, and they had like a movie afternoon, and they were like, "We watched that movie again, Mom, with the beavers." And I was like, "Did you like it?" They
watched one battle after another. That's a great camp you send your kids to.
Sean Penn, he deserved it.
Well, it was a Taekwondo camp, so they could have been. They could have been training. And then,
I don't want to do your dirty work. Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Thank you, Sensei.
Aw. Well, that's a great movie. Okay, wait. I totally lost what we were doing. Okay, we're trying to end the show.
End the episode, yeah.
Greg,
tell us what you've been up to other than thinking about Steven Spielberg.
Nothing. PT? No. Thank you so much. I hope that the last episode and this episode have been fun for listeners. We'd love to hear from you if this is just too beyond the pale. Is this like 8 hours of Spielberg content this month? Some such. So what have I been up to? I have been home without kids for a little while, and I decided to take the opportunity to finally fuel my deep-seated jealousy of Jen's ability to write like she's running out of time, and restart my blog. So people can jump over to ioncanon.com is the easiest way to get that. EYEONCANON, or Ion Canon on Substack. Jen, I think, almost always tags me as the creator in these episodes, so you could find it right there. I have a post up kind of in the wake of Mandalorian and Grogu, thinking about Star Wars fandom. And then fresh at like 5 o'clock this evening, because I knew I needed to get it down before tonight, I did a full review of Disclosure Day, which is just me. And I want to state for the record, that was written and posted before these two talked, because they said a lot of ideas that are on that blog, which it'll sound like I ripped off. But I knew I would do that if I didn't post it ahead of time. So in other words, if you liked this episode but wanted a little less Jen and PT, you can find my fully disclosed thoughts on Disclosure Day over on ioncanon.com. I'm also on Letterboxd. I finished the New York Times 100 list. I've viewed almost as many Spielberg as PT. It's no big deal. It's just what it is. PT, what's going on with you?
I mean, it was so much less than that. You go find me on Letterboxd at PT McNiff, PTMCNIFF. watched a lot of Spielberg movies recently. Who knows where I'll go next? Maybe I'll rewatch some Toy Story movies. I don't know, before the new one comes out. You can also follow the show there at LTR Pod. You can look for us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at The Long Take Review. You can email us, thelongtakereview@gmail.com. You can also just follow us wherever you get your podcast, wherever you're listening right now. Use the mechanism available on the platform of your choice to subscribe to new episodes so you can get updates and announcements about things that are coming down the road. We do have banked an Oscar Ferry flashback episode. Unclear when we'll post that because we entered Spielberg season right after we recorded it. So, and now it's Toy Story season coming up. So who knows what will happen. But, we've got some great big movies coming out. Toy Story, Supergirl, ? The Odyssey, Spider-Man, lots of stuff that's happening out there. And Greg at least saw Masters of the Universe, but I don't think he wants to talk about it. And maybe Jen and I will see it and do an episode. Who knows? Oh, The Invite. Thank you, Greg. The Invite is also coming up soon. So many things for us to talk about. Follow along for new episodes. Also, if you haven't, we've alluded to it a couple times. How many times is dependent upon Jen's judicious editing. But we did just do a draft of Steven Spielberg movies. That's our most recent episode before this one. So in case you missed that one, it is quite long. We had Anthony from Force Coast Conversations on. We picked a bunch of great movies and collaborators and random wildcard things that allowed us to discuss his whole career. So if this wasn't enough Spielberg talk for you, there is plenty more where that came from. Jen, where can folks find you?
They can find me planning our Tom Holland Spider-Man episode. You just gave me a great idea. We have to do something like that, like a rewatch of all the Tom Holland
sure
Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, retrospective.
Because I don't think we've really talked about Spider-Man outside of the context of Across the Spider-Verse, probably.
Yeah.
Because No Way Home was before we started, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So,
or what about a draft where you pick from all across, like, who's your Spider-Man, who's your love interest, who's your villain? Build your own Spider-Man movie more than a draft. That could be really fun.
Oh,
okay.
God.
I like it.
Time out for just like 1 second. Because I also listened to the Tom Holland Amy Poehler, and they talked about his viral video of him dancing to Singing in the Rain and Umbrella. Like absolute peak internet content. He is currently rehearsing his dance moves for a Fred Astaire biography.
Wow.
Totally there for it. What great casting. What a good time.
Wow. All right.
Back to you, Jen.
I can't follow up that. You can find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Subchakchai or on Letterboxd at Qui-Gon Jen. I feel like we've overdone the clicking, so I don't know.
Yeah, I tried to avoid that. This is where I thought Greg could do his Fallen hype draft update, but he did it earlier.
Oh, well.
Let's take it clean. Hype draft. What
am I going to do with that? I was like...
That's it. You just leave it. Just
the reverb on it.
Well, now it's going to be on the soundboard. And every time we mention a movie from our hype draft, I'll just play that.
Don't threaten me with a good time. Oh, I'm stealing PT's lines.
Oh, no. Oh, does anyone speak Russian or Korean?
No, and we shouldn't try.
Thanks for listening. You can follow The Long Take Review on Substack at thelongtake.substack.com. Subscribe for free, and you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops. You will also receive occasional written reviews of new Star Wars and Marvel.